1st, 2016 at 6 p.m. It's Colorado Day 2, the Mayor Pro Tem says. Calling the meeting to order, and I'm going to ask the City Clerk to call the roll.
Yes, Mayor Ford.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bullock.
Here.
Councilmember Amador.
Present.
Councilmember Teeter.
Here.
Councilmember Carson.
Present.
Councilmember Diaz.
Here.
Councilmember McEldowney. Councilmember Elliott. Councilmember Douglas.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And for the record, everyone is here. They are just dallying to get out to the council meeting, I guess. But Councilwoman Elliott is also here for the record. All right. I want to ask everybody to please rise for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I'd ask the staff to pass around the microphone and allow the audience to introduce themselves, please.
Stan Bush, CBS 4.
Betty Thomas.
Danny Thomas.
Jen Wilson.
Scott Wilson.
Kathy Blakeman, Human Resources.
Lowell Richardson, Police Department. Jeff Woog, Fire Department.
Karen O'Donnell, Parks, Recreation, and Golf.
Cheryl Karstens, Finance.
Brennan Mendes, or Risk Management.
Jeremy Gray, consultant to the city, Mosaic Planning.
Priscilla Mankowski, IT.
All right, thank you very much for being here this evening. We're going to start our meeting off with proclamations and recognitions. First, we're going to start with the Employee Appreciation Month proclamation. I'd invite the interim city attorney to read the proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Proclamation. Whereas Commerce City desires to build a quality community for a lifetime for nearly 51,800 residents and 1,270 businesses, and whereas the city's employees, numbering over 650, including seasonal and variable hours, strive to achieve this mission on a daily basis, providing a wealth of services and programs. And whereas the 2014 Citizen Survey reaffirmed employees' success in meeting our constituents' expectations, and whereas it is important to recognize quality customer service, employee contributions, teamwork, and organizational success, and whereas the City Council of the City of Commerce City wishes to recognize and reward employees for their dedicated service and outstanding achievements. Now, therefore, on behalf of the City Council, I hereby proclaim the month of August 2016 as Employee Appreciation Month, thanking the city's employees for all of their hard work and dedication to the City of Commerce City.
Thank you. I'm open for a motion. Mr. McEldowney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move to approve the proclamation regarding Commerce City Employee Appreciation Month.
Thank you. Mr. Bullock.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the proclamation as read. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. And I'd like to invite the city manager up to the podium to accept the proclamation on behalf of all the employees. I'd also like to say how important our employees are to us. Without the employees of the city taking care of even some of the things that people don't recognize on a daily basis, whether it be cleaning storm drains, sweeping streets, taking care of the bathrooms at the rec center. I mean, there's a lot of services that happen at this city, and we're grateful to every one of those employees who is dedicated, comes to work every day to make the city a better place. So thank you to all of the employees. And I talked about the ones at the lower end. They're all throughout, and of course Brian being at the top. That would include all the employees that are in this room and watching on TV, wherever you may be. Each and every one of you provide a vital resource to this community, and I personally want to thank you. So if you'll join me down front to give this proclamation to Brian McBroom.
Come on, city employees.
All right. Next item is the Safety Net Clinic Week. I'd like to invite Norma Portney, who I didn't see here. They're not here, huh? All right. Well, we have this Kids First Healthcare team that should have been here to accept the proclamation, to say a few words about the activities surrounding Safety Net Clinic Week. It's a great organization. They do a lot for our community. I want to move forward with the proclamation anyhow. So I'd ask the interim city attorney to read the proclamation.
Proclamation. Whereas Kids First Healthcare is one of 43 community safety net clinics and 51 federally certified rural health care clinics in Colorado, and whereas clinics such as Kids First Healthcare were created by civic-minded individuals, healthcare professionals, and other community organizations that recognize there are many individuals, children, and families still in need of timely access to healthcare services. And whereas Colorado's federally certified clinics provide essential health care treatment and preventive services serving 344,000 Coloradans annually with an estimated 1,125,000 visits. And whereas clinics like Kids First Healthcare are safety net providers that primarily serve uninsured, underinsured, or insured through public programs like Medicaid, CHP Plus, and Medicare. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of Commerce City recognizes that community safety net and rural health clinics such as Kids First Healthcare provide essential health care services to our city's underserved population. And be it further resolved, the City declares August 15 to 19, 2016 as Safety Net Clinic Week, expressing our appreciation and gratitude to staff members that dedicate their time, energy, and resources to serving our community.
Thank you. I'm open for a motion. Mr. McEldowney.
Move to approve the proclamation regarding Safety Net Clinic Week.
Thank you. Mr. Amador?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the proclamation is read. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. And I know that the recipients are not
Mr.
here
Mayor?
with us. The proclamation has been read and approved. I'll make sure. Yes, sir.
It's my understanding Ms. Portnoy will be here a little bit later, so perhaps when she arrives, if there's an
All right.
opportunity to take a short break and present her with the proclamation and take a photo, that would be nice.
Fine, thank you. We'll take care of that when the time comes. All right, now we move into our citizen communication portion of the meeting. Per City Council policy, Available at the back room, citizen communication is at the time of our agenda for public address, council on business and affairs of the city. As we approach the election season, council would like to remind candidates for elected office that political activity in city buildings is prohibited per resolution 2008-60. This includes campaigning from the podium. Please give your name and address for the record and keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. Thank you. I need to ask because we didn't have anyone sign up. I know there's some folks I haven't seen here before. I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to come up and talk during citizen communication. So if you'll raise your hand if you want to talk to the council about city business, I'll call you up. Sir, right here in the front, come on up to the podium. State your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Joe Quillen. I live in Stapleton at 2730 Clinton Street. It's about 3.5 miles from here. And first of all, I would like to say that I'm glad we have a facility like Dick's in the neighborhood. I think it adds a lot of life and vitality to our community and provides a great venue for concerts. I would like to see Dick's do well, but I would also like them to become more considerate neighbors. On Saturday night this past, I was in my study in the basement of our home, again 3.5 miles from here, after 11 p.m., with the doors and windows closed when the house shook. I thought it was an earthquake. I went outside and I looked and I realized it was bass coming from Dick's Stadium. The noise was rocking the neighborhood. Denver Police gave me Dick's Noise Hotline. The simple fact that there's a dedicated hotline to complain about noise from Dick's is a little disheartening. I registered my complaint. In subsequent conversations with Commerce City Police, I discovered it was a Bass Nectar event that was issued a permit by Commerce City lasting until 12:15 on Sunday morning. The police officer strongly encouraged me to register my complaint with you folks, and so here I am. It should not come as a surprise that this event was a problem. Bass Nectar can no longer hold events at Red Rocks due to noise restrictions adopted there in 2015 because of community outrage over a Bass Nectar event. In response to those new decibel restrictions, here are some quotes from the Bass Nectar Twitter feed back in September of 2015. Quote, "Red Rocks is going to have to run their sound levels so low that it will sound like laptop speakers. Fans and music lovers deserve the experience they expect, full sonic immersion. Colorado deserves the bass. We're putting together plans for something super magical in Colorado where we can play at decent volume and gather the freaks in 2016, end quote. I don't know about you, but I've been to many events at Red Rock, and I haven't heard anything that sounds like laptop speakers. This gives you a pretty good idea of the relative perspective from Bass Nectar of what is acceptable noise in their view. I just would like to know who thought it was a good idea to drop this extreme bass sonic immersion event right into the middle of a residential neighborhood on a typical Saturday night into Sunday morning, followed by a Sunday morning fireworks display. I'm a Denver resident as well as many others who have complained. And the fact that our quality of life and property values are negatively affected by the actions of Commerce City may leave us with little recourse other than the courts. I don't know. I hope not. We will exercise every option available to us to prevent future violations of acceptable noise levels in the community. Our hope is that the Commerce City City Council will adopt reasonable noise restrictions and see that they are enforced for all future events. I thank you for your time and your consideration. I also have a printout of some specific events that were, or complaints that were posted on the Nextdoor Stapleton website. Just various people, and some of them are more than 4 miles away.
That would be great. You can hand those to the attorney sitting right next to you. And first of all, I'd like to say, number one, this council didn't know who Bass Nectar was. We didn't know at the time that this was a band in Red Rocks and other places. We do not set the venue for Dick's. That's Kroenke Sports. That's that venue.
But it is permitted by the city. Is that correct?
You know what? The outdoor camping was permitted by the city. I do have a quote I'd like to read because I did receive some phone calls. I received five complaints prior to the concert because of the noise levels when they were doing their sound checks, and I had one complaint Saturday night at 11:45. That's what I personally received, was a total of 6 complaints. I want to go through this because I think it's important that you hear it and the news that's here also understands. Last weekend, Cronky Sports and Entertainment held a two-day concert at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, attended by 22,000 people and 4,500 overnight campers. Commerce City imposed the most stringent regulations possible under our current ordinances to permit the event, consistent with these types of uses allowed at the stadium. Overall, that event met permit expectations, with all sound and vibration readings well below established thresholds. Most of our police activity responded to individuals under the influence of narcotics, alcohol, or both. Commerce City is proud to be home at Dick's Sporting Goods Park and the Colorado Rapids. We've had a good partnership for the past decade, and I'd like to request the city manager identify a process to review current ordinances and permit processes to continue to manage large-scale events successfully for the future. And on that note, I'm open for a motion from council to do so. Mr. McEldowney.
I would so move.
Mr. Bullock.
Second.
A motion and a second to direct staff to do so. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That motion is carried. The first thing is, number one, we don't want to disturb anybody with our venue that's here. We built that venue where we built it because there were no homes around it, and so that we could have these kind of venues within our community. We understand that Denver is building out Northfields, and there are homes that are getting closer to that stadium. We receive complaints from soccer games all the way up to and including Base Nectar concerts. I think there has to be a reasonable expectation living next to a stadium, and Base Nectar may be over the top, but of course, normal concerts and soccer games, I think, need to be expected because of the type of venue that we live nearby.
And we do expect that,
Okay.
and we like the fact that Dick's is here. All of the complaints that and it's just a few that I excerpted, are from south of MLK.
Okay.
And we were there starting in 2004 before there was a Dick's. And they go all the way over into Park Hill, off of Monaco and 29th. And so this is not something that's just restricted to the Northfield area of Stapleton.
We have homes that are just to the west of Quebec Street. I did not receive a single complaint from Commerce City. So I will tell you, we actually want to work with our neighbors, even though you're in Denver. It's not a them and us situation. Matter of fact, we just recently put together a letter to go out to the selling agents for the Northfields area to make sure that the people purchasing homes are aware that there are events that happen on a regular basis out here at Dick's, and we'll do everything we can to be good neighbors, and we will be prepared to deal with Base Nectar type of events after we look at our policies and procedures on noise within our community, and hopefully we can come to a settlement that will be beneficial to the residents of Denver as well as the residents of Commerce City.
Great. I appreciate that. And what is the best way for me to track progress on that effort?
You would talk to our city staff. City manager's right here. You would be able to contact him through the city's regular phone number is 303-289-3600. And any of the administrative folks will be able to make sure you have that. He's going to give you a card.
Okay.
So you don't have to write it out. And so that way you have access to get a hold of our administration. And when you have a concern, we want to make sure that we're talking to you and trying to address the best way we can. We did have several council members, police officers, including Denver police officers over in the Northfields area, with monitoring devices to make sure that we were trying to be as respectful as we can.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing when I mapped the complaints that were made online, Facebook and Nextdoor. Almost all of them were south. And they were south of MLK, which is kind of weird. I don't know whether it's the wind or bouncing off of clouds.
Yeah, it has to be, because the stuff that's close by, I didn't receive that many
Yeah, and I saw postings from people who were close by that said they didn't hear anything. But you can look, and there are postings from all along Montview Boulevard where they're waking up babies and rattling windows. And so it's kind of weird how that works, and I don't fully understand it, but it certainly deserves some study.
I agree. And we'll be monitoring that, and I thank you for your concerns, and thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Now, is there anyone else? Please come on forward. Need to state your name and address for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes, just as the last gentleman.
Mr. Mayor, rest of the council members, thank you for giving me the time. My name is Scott Wilson. I live at 8394 East 55th across the street from Dick's Sporting Goods. I did not have any time to prepare. I literally learned about the meeting less than 10 minutes before I got in the car and came over here. So I don't have any prepared statements. I just came to give you my perspective. While sitting there with my wife, the mayor and one other council member came over and discussed with this gentleman and his wife the noise coming over, and they both said that they did not hear it and they did not feel it. I'm sorry, 3 members of the council. We had 72 decibels on our porch, so I'd be interested to see the data that your police department captured, as well as Denver PD and whatever else is available. But it was, I have a 64-year-old woman living in my house that has renal failure and needs sleep. You know, she literally has said that there have been 2 events. We weren't here for the first one, so I can't really speak to it. But it was a few months ago where the base volume was so high that our entire house and windows were rattling. I will personally invite, my wife and I will invite the entire council to our house the next time an event like this happens. When we purchased our home, we came and spent 4 hours listening to a Fish concert, because that's what we understood as the only concert that was actually happening at Dick's Sporting Good Park. We sat in our car with the windows open on 55th Street in front of our home. No issue. We went into the house while it was being built. There was no rattling. You couldn't hear anything. 98% of the time, this is not an issue. This specific event caused 3 days of frustration for me and my family. I get it. We're in different cities. We're in different jurisdictions. But from my perspective, we have to be neighbors and we have to be friendly neighbors. This was not a friendly event, and I'm pretty upset about it. So the reason we showed up is to explain to you all sort of how we feel about it. And you know, we will clearly go have that same conversation with the city of Denver. This is my first time in front of a city council in my life. I lived in New York City. It's pretty loud there. This was significantly louder than anything I've dealt with. So that's what I had to say.
Well, while I have you at the podium, I think it's important that you know we, the council members, didn't understand what Base Nectar even was.
Fair enough.
And then we started finding out they were banned from other venues because of the volume of this vibration and noise. It doesn't mean that we're going to ban them, but I think we need to make sure that our ordinances are in place to be able to make sure we can be good neighbors.
I know that the city of Denver, if you don't mind me interrupting you, the city of Denver, from a public location like yours to a private location, has a decibel limit of 55 decibels.
Okay.
We certainly exceeded that in this. And I get, you know, I've lived through noise issues in the past, but it seems like if you don't have, I don't know what your rules are. I actually couldn't find them on your website. I was searching on Saturday night. I had just gotten off a plane and was exhausted, and I couldn't find them. So long story short, I think they should exist.
We do have limits, and our chief of police can be able to talk to you about those limits. He's in the back of the room. We can make sure you have that information. And as you saw, we just took a vote to look into strengthening our noise limits within the city. We do have 2 more concerts for sure that are going to happen this year. Of course, Fish is one that you pointed out. They will be back for Labor Day. And then we have Luke Bryan, a country western concert that will be taking place, I believe, is only for 1 night. Is that right? Two nights?
I've never heard a concert other than I've never heard a soccer game. Yeah, we hear a little bit of background noise, but our assumption when we purchased a home across the street from Dick's Sporting Good was that we would hear some noise.
Sure.
This wasn't some noise.
Well, and that's what we're going to work on.
Yeah.
So at least you know we're being considerate to take it under advisement, and we will be seeing what we can do through our ordinances. And we appreciate you coming in this evening.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during citizen communication? All right. Thank you all. Seeing none, we're going to move forward. We're going to go to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes items that are routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, and non-controversial. They are presented to council for a single motion and vote. Any member of council may ask to remove a specific item for further discussion and a separate vote. Tonight there are 5 items listed under the consent agenda. Does anyone on this council wish to remove an item off of the consent agenda for further discussion? Seeing none, And I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, and then I'll have the interim city attorney, read the titles. Mr. Bullock.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Mr. McEldowney.
Second.
Thank you. A motion and second. Will the city attorney, interim city attorney, please read the titles?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution 2016-57, resolution approving settlement agreement to resolve litigation, Hammer et al. Versus City of Commerce City and City of Commerce City versus Hammer et al. Resolution 2016-87, resolution approving intergovernmental agreement regarding Tower Road improvements with South Adams County Water and Sanitation District. Resolution 2016-96, resolution appointing members to designated boards and commissions of Commerce City. Resolution 2016-82, resolution finding substantial compliance of an annexation petition and setting a public hearing to determine if the proposed annexation complies with statutory requirements for such annexation, AN-237-16. Resolution 2016-83, resolution finding substantial compliance of an annexation petition and setting a public hearing to determine if the proposed annexation complies with statutory requirements for such annexation, AN-238-16.
Titles have been read. I have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Thank you.
Mr. Douglas. For the record, the consent agenda has been approved unanimously by the City Council this evening. Now we'll move into the public hearing portion of the meeting. We have Resolution 2016-60-60. I'm going to open the public hearing and invite Jeremy Gray with the Mosaic Community Planning forward to give a presentation.
Mr. Mayor?
Why is it 8-0 on that? So it's 8-0, not 6-0. For the record, Resolution 2016-80. Yes, sir.
If I might, folks here to receive the proclamation for Safety Net Clinic Week are here. Would you mind taking a short break and presenting her, Norma, with the...
That'll be great.
Proclamation. Sorry,
that will be great.
Interrupt the order here for just a moment.
All right. So before we move on to Resolution 2016-80, I would invite the folks from Kids First Health to come forward to the podium. Hi, Norma.
Hi, Norma.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's on or not. I think it is because the light's on. We did earlier in the meeting, we had the proclamation read, and we did approve the proclamation.
Thank you.
So is there anything you would like to tell us before we come down and give you the proclamation?
Sure. Oh, my gosh. I'm all over the place. So this is Maria Zubia. She's our Director of Outreach and has been, 10 years? 15.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my gosh. So I'm just going to give you just a little brief information. So Kids First by numbers. We have 5 clinics in Commerce City. We served over 2,200 children last year with around 6,000 healthcare visits and 1,100 immunizations. So what I probably didn't talk about previously is the impact that good health has on academic achievement for the kids. And there have been numerous studies across the country that show that school-based health centers, which is the way that we do business, improves health status, reduces absenteeism, decreases discipline referrals, decreases teen pregnancy rates, improves readiness to learn, more kids advance a grade, more kids stay in school. And what it all comes down to is higher graduation rates from high school as a result of school-based health centers. So I just wanted to mention that, and I wanted to thank you for your support year after year. We really appreciate it. And that's basically what I wanted to say.
Well, thank you for everything you do for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to invite everybody to our open house. Once again, this year we'll have our annual open house at our main clinic on 4675 East 69th Avenue across from the old high school. It is Thursday, August 18th from 4 to 6. This time it'll be in the evening. So we'd like to invite everyone to come out and join us. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Now, if the council will join me down front, we can give this proclamation to the rightful owners. All righty. We're going to get back to the public hearing at hand. Resolution 2016-80. Jeremy Gray is on his way up, and we're going to have a community planning presentation, and then we'll ask the audience if they want to talk about it. Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me to present to you the consolidated plan tonight. My name is Jeremy Gray. I'm a principal of Mosaic Community Planning based in Atlanta. And we've been working on this project with Steve Timms and his staff in the Community Development Department since March. And this is my, I believe, my fourth visit to the city since then. And it has been a really excellent project. We've really enjoyed working with the city. Everyone in that office has been very hospitable and organized. And Commerce City, we have worked with cities all over, some much larger than Commerce City, but Commerce City has a lot going for it, and it's been a pretty exciting place to work. There's a lot happening here, and I think a lot of focus and strategic direction going in a way that is exciting. So just want to tell you that it's been a good project for us, and I hope that it has been for you too. The purpose of the plan that we're presenting here, it's a public hearing, so as I understand it, the public will have an opportunity after this presentation to comment. And then we also are hoping that you adopt the plan and approve it for submission to HUD. I'm going to go through a couple of the key pieces of the plan. And the first is the process that we use to put the plan together. And you may remember some of this information from a previous presentation that we made. One change that is here is that we've updated the number of survey respondents. I'm not sure what the number was previously, but by the time we closed that survey, it was 210 respondents, which we felt like was a really good number. We were pleased with the amount of input we were able to get into the plan. It does hinge to a great deal on the public input that we receive from citizens and also people who represent nonprofit organizations and public agencies in Commerce City, but also in the Denver metro area as well. One piece of our plan was a needs assessment, and so this came from the input that we received from the public, from the survey, and just kind of one key survey result that I put up there for you is this. 90% of the people, the 210 people who took our survey, rated as either a moderate or high need, the need for street, road, and sidewalk improvements in the city. And so you'll see as we get to the list of projects, and I believe you've seen that list already too, that ranked pretty highly in terms of the priority order that the Community Development Block Grant funds are going to be directed toward. We have not, or I have not, talked with you particularly about this market analysis, which is also a piece of the report. And I believe in your packet you have the full plan, and so you have this chapter. It's also addressed in the executive summary that you have as well. But this piece of the plan is important because it looks at the housing market and it looks at other features in the local market and determines, what the needs might be based on where your market is currently. We know, and we heard quite a bit, people talk about how home values and rents have increased. There are anecdotal examples. We don't have statistics on this, but that rents were increasing, 50% or more year over year, things like that. The data, the hard data that we looked at showed that between 2000 and 2012, rents in the city have increased 39%. Home values in the city have increased 72% over that time period. There is just a general shortfall in availability of units that exist here in Commerce City. And so if you look at the number of the population and you look at household size, there are 1,400 units that are missing from Commerce City that should be here in order to house the population that you currently have. And so that scarcity drives up, of course, the price of rental and also ownership housing. 31% of renters in the city spend more than $1,000 per month on rent. There are subsidized housing options that are available. There are some senior projects as well. Vacancies in those projects are almost non-existent. Any sort of voucher program, there are the waiting lists for programs like that are going to be closed. The public housing, and by that I mean HUD-funded public housing, and that would be Adams County Housing Authority, not Commerce City Housing Authority. There is none in Commerce City. What public housing there is in the Denver or in Adams County is outside of Commerce City. And so those more affordable options are just hard to find here. The strategic plan, the key piece there is this list of 6 priority needs. And so based on kind of taking together all of this that we've heard from people, all the data and the numbers that we've looked at, these are the 6 priorities that will guide funding decisions under this grant program for the next 5 years, according to this plan. And so the first of those you see is neighborhood revitalization, and that gets to the street, road, and sidewalk improvements that we talked about earlier, but can also include things like demolition of abandoned or vacant structures, blight remediation, things like that. So you see on this list also preserving and expanding affordable housing, economic development, public services. And I know also in your packet was a letter that the city received from Access Housing. I believe to date that's the only comment that the city has received, but that sort of a project could be funded and connected to that number 4 priority of public services. The last 2 are there almost as kind of an administrative convenience. They're necessary to have funds to operate the program, and HUD is also going to require you as a grant recipient to do this affirmatively furthering fair housing choice. And so we included those as priorities just so that you can use your grant funds toward those. You've seen this map before, and so the purple shaded area is the low and moderate income area, the low and moderate income census tracts in the city. And so for those HUD programs that require that the area as a whole qualify as low and moderate income, that's where those areas are going to be. And just to zoom in a little bit, you see that that's all going to be south of 96th Avenue. One question that last time I presented to you that did come up was, what is the definition of low and moderate income? And I believe probably staff resolved and got an answer back to you on that. But for a family of 4 in Commerce City, you would be considered low and moderate income if a family of 4 had an income of $64,100 a year or less. That's what qualifies as low or moderate income. So the last piece of the plan is an annual action plan. And so the consolidated plan that we did is a 5-year plan. The city won't have to do that again until 2021. But the annual action plan, every year under the consolidated plan, there will be a specific list of projects that the city is going to propose for funding. So for this first year, the city is starting out with we feel like an achievable list of projects. Try not to get in over your heads before you have staff lined up to help administer the program. But these are the 4 projects. Sidewalk improvements on Quebec Street, also filling in where sidewalks are missing in the core city, improvements to bus stops, within the city, and then the city is allowed to take 20% of the grant amount for program administration and planning, and that's what you see that amount for there. In future years, the plan outlines these as projects, and you see some of these will be core city things because it requires that it serve an area, and that area has to be low and moderate income. Some of these things serve people, and you can serve people anywhere in the city as long as they are low and moderate income, and so you see that there's the designation there between core city and citywide projects. The city has some flexibility here. So in your consolidated plan, you're laying out these as the things that you expect to fund. But when this process comes around again next year and you're proposing to HUD a specific list of projects that you're going to fund in program years 2, 3, 4, and 5, that's what is going to kind of lock you into projects. So you're not locked into these. These can change if your priorities change over the next year. And then the last piece that we have drafted for the city is called a citizen participation plan. HUD requires this of all its grantees, and basically it is just a plan. It's a set of guidelines that the city is going to hold itself to in terms of how it interacts and engages with the public to administer its CDBG program. So when the annual action plan comes up next year, this citizen participation plan is going to guide how the public is engaged in the process. I provided here for you a list of a few things that plan contains. For the most part, these are regulatory minimums. The city's not proposing to go way over and above what the regulations require, but this is what a good citizen participation plan has to have in it, and that's basically what we've embraced in this citizen participation plan. There'll be 2 meetings a year. They have to be called at least with 2 weeks' notice. Those are going to be public meetings. There'll be a presentation of any draft plan or any amendments to the plan. And this one has been published for 30 days, so it's been out there for public comment and review. There are also processes for how the plan gets amended, and also if somebody ever has a grievance with the program, how that complaint or appeal is lodged. In 2 weeks, so August 15th is the deadline for the submission of the plan to HUD, and so if the plan is adopted tonight, we begin the process of putting the plan into a system that HUD requires for it to be submitted through. So that's what happens, and then it is submitted on August 15th. HUD has from then until October 1st to review and approve the plan, and then your program year is going to begin August 1st, which means on August 1st you can begin drawing down funds under the grant. To get the program off the ground, there is some work that's going to require. So before you can draw that first dollar of funds, there are environmental reviews, there are other pieces of program administration that have to be in place. So as a consultant to the city, I do think that it is important, and I know that the city has budgeted and allotted funds for it, but for a coordinator to be on board as soon as possible to help get the things going. One of the things, CDBG can be an interesting grant program. Usually funders they want to hold on to those funds. HUD wants the funds spent. And so if the program gets behind and you're not spending money as quickly as you need to, you're going to hear from your reps at HUD. And so it's important to be able to get that program off the ground as quickly as possible. So that's our process moving forward, and I would ask you if you have any questions of me before I...
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jeremy Gray at this time from the council? I have Councilwoman Carson. How about Mr. Bullock?
Yes, sir. Thank you for your presentation. This is what we've been waiting for because we are chomping at the bit to get this submitted. In your presentation, when on the pages of 9 and 10, for program administration, it shows $77,268. And then in the next slide, it shows program administration 309,072. Those two figures don't actually add up. The 77,000.
One's through the second, through the 5th year, and one's for just year 1.
Okay. I don't have a question anymore.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's it, yeah.
All right. All right, Councilwoman Carson.
Thank you for the presentation, and yes, we're all very excited. But under here it says minor home repair.
Right.
Can you, for the listening audience, what would some of the projects look like that would be under minor home repair?
Sure. So I can give you some examples of projects that I've seen conducted under a program like that. It will be up to the city to define what sorts of projects it wants to do. So some grantees try to take it and do it really easy and choose maybe two sorts of projects that they will fund. They might say, we'll do roofs and we'll do HVACs. Some cities or grantees might try to do whatever a homeowner needs and brings to them. So it could be, you could do handicapped ramps with that. You could replace, you can do anything really. I mean, minor home repair, the program allows you to do serious major home repair, but
Okay.
you can decide what you would like.
Yeah, thank you for that
Sure.
answer.
Anyone else? Seeing no one else, is there anyone in the audience who would like to come up and talk to the council about the this consolidation plan? Anyone? Seeing no one, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm closing
Thank
the
you.
public hearing. And I'm opening up for a motion. Councilwoman Carson.
Move to approve Resolution 2016-80.
Thank you. Mr. McEldowney.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2016-80. Council is seated. All those in favor? Now, let's have you read the title, please, and then I'll do.
Thank you. Resolution 2016-80, resolution approving 2016 to 2021 consolidated plan.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Plan has been adopted. Moving into ordinances on first reading. We have ordinance 2110. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on this ordinance? Dealing with ice cream vendors. Seeing no one, I'm open for a motion. Mr. Bullock?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, move to introduce ordinance 2110 on first reading. Council is seated.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Teeter?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to introduce ordinance 2110. For the city attorney, please read the title.
Ordinance 2110, an ordinance amending the Commerce City Revised Municipal Code to license and regulate mobile ice cream vendors.
Thank you. A motion and a second. The title's been read. I'll ask for a roll call vote. For the record, it's been introduced unanimously by the council this evening. Thank you. Next item is ordinance 2109. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on this ordinance? Seeing none. I'm open for a motion. Mr. Bullock.
Move to introduce ordinance 2109 on first reading. Council is seated.
Thank you. Mr. McEldowney.
Second.
A motion and a second to introduce ordinance 2109. Will the city attorney please read the title of that one?
Ordinance 2109, an ordinance authorizing the issuance by the City of Commerce City, Colorado of its sales and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2016, and providing other details in connection therewith.
Thank you. All right, I have a motion and a second. Title's been read. I'm open for a roll call vote. For the record, ordinance 2109 has been introduced unanimously by the City Council this evening. Now we move into our presentation portion of the meeting. We're going to start with service dogs and the ADA. I'd like to invite Mrs. Birds forward to give the presentation. Hi, good evening, and welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us here.
Thanks
I
for
really
being here.
appreciate this. First off, thank you guys. Thank you for having us. I want to approach you and give you some things on the ADA so you
Sure.
can read along.
I can give it one of those two, and they'll bring them up.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, your city lawyer's kind. He doesn't appear to be a lawyer. It's deceiving.
Trust me, he's not all cracked up to what you think.
Right?
Oh, I'm just
Maybe I was
kidding.
on the other end and
Sorry,
have that
Robert.
opinion.
I couldn't let that go without having a little fun with you.
First, I'll start before I flip through everything and let you know kind of why I'm here tonight. I didn't have hearing impairment to the point where I needed a service dog until this last year. I'm Kathy Birds. I'm a citizen or a working citizen here in Commerce City. My husband's owned a business for 30 plus years here. And so I'm here daily. And when I acquired the dog, I realized not everybody in business mostly was aware of what service animals are. And then as I got to talking, I realized, and as I'm experiencing things with a service dog, I realized nobody really knows how to interact. So tonight I'd like to have that talk. Maybe we can put some things out to our business owners. In a brief short story, I was in a local chain here in Commerce City, and when I walked in, the business, or the gal at the desk, the clerk went, "We don't allow dogs in here." And I went, "It's okay, it's a service dog." And she goes, "I don't care, we don't allow dogs in here." And I thought, well, you would care. And I'm sure your company would care, because it's a law. So that's what's brought me here tonight. And I want to hope that when this is done, even our government and our law enforcement has a little more education, because really the pieces I want to talk about tonight are gray areas. There are gray areas. I don't know if you can see Justice. She's back there with Jimmy. But she doesn't really wear anything that identifies her as a service dog, because she's a Bernese Mountain Dog. If you put anything on that dog, she pants forever. So she has a collar, but it's not visible in most cases. That's not required. Literally, in the ADA, there are just training that the dog has to have. It has to be under commands. It has to be under certain abilities to serve, and that's its requirement. It's such a gray section that I tell everybody, and I'm kind of forwarding to behind you, to the rules. And the first thing that I always tell everybody is there's only 2 questions we get to ask. Is that a service dog? What service does it provide? There is nothing else we can ask. I can't ask about the disability. I can't ask about anything. Mine's not an obvious disability. Usually people don't know that I'm hearing impaired because I read lips really, really well, that it makes it difficult for them to go, "Really? You're hearing impaired?" Well, wait till I misunderstand what you say and my eyebrows go up and we start having conversation. You're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, I didn't say that." So it's not apparent, and that's always a hurdle to overcome. And the biggest part that I can say is so many times one of the biggest things, the 2 other disabilities that really aren't visible are PTSD and diabetes. So a lot of times a person can be completely normal and they don't show any need, but that animal's fully trained and fully aware of the needs. And the direction of the people around brings me to the next topic. It's the hardest thing for me as a pet owner to tell somebody when they walk up to me, "You can't pet this really adorable Bernese Mountain Dog." But she's 8 months old right now, and her and I have been in this training together. And I tried to defy the odds, and my trainer kept saying, "Don't defy the odds." And she was right. Because we really notice that if somebody tries to pet Justice, she's trying to pay attention to me and still be a friendly animal. So she looks like she's hesitating because she's really still trying to do her job. So in every aspect of this education that we get, it not only touches law enforcement, because law enforcement get called out to these things regularly. They have to be very knowledgeable about this. It's probably not something they're used to dealing with very often, so it's just knowledge in the back of their head usually. But believe it or not, many of the times that I've dealt with the police force, they do know their job. They're one of the few in government entities that are educated. I've never experienced anything in any other really government entity that hasn't allowed a service dog. But there are, at a business level, some education that we need to still keep going on, because not many people understand that it doesn't matter if it's a museum, it doesn't matter if it's a kitchen that's open in a restaurant, they have to allow the dog in. One of the biggest pieces that we're learning in the service animal community is that the other piece that helps law enforcement and our government entities and restaurant owners be able to not feel like there's such a gray area that they have no law and order is that we as the disabled have a responsibility to be in control of our dog at all times. We have a responsibility to make sure it is voice or hand commanded. And I think if I can give some kudos to Commerce City, there's a few businesses here that I frequent regularly, and they're very, very friendly. They're very, very knowledgeable. So I think we've got a head start here just because we're already working in the city. But I think when we get down to compliance in public and really working with our police department, that's where it comes in handy, because they're usually the ones to intervene. So I'm going to give some examples of that. The different situations is talking and training. So I'm encouraging not just you guys as city to encourage or educate all of your employees, not just ones that are handling doors and things, but also maybe we could have something, and I offer this resource guide that people can just download and read as business owners and understand these things too. In my guide on page 18, I always tell people conflicts between patrons are the biggest issue. Your police deal with that more than anything, but then you guys do too, because then you have your citizens here at night going, okay, why aren't you doing something? And there again, we have to keep educating. So I think with ADA and the service animals, and the biggest thing that I guess would get anybody's attention is the fines that are applied to this if you're found guilty of it. I've worked very close with the ADA here in Colorado Springs. We've been on the phone to each other constantly. That's where these little flyers came from. And actually, that is what they give any of us disabled that need a quick guide if we're ever questioned. Is that a service dog? Or why do you have to have that dog? We quickly just hand them that, open it, and say, here's the 2 questions. Yes, it's a service dog, and it alerts. So everything that's at stake is up to, in the first offense, a $55,000 fine. So if that can get attention, then I say get attention with it. The only thing I didn't want to touch on tonight, because it really doesn't apply much, in Texas, they have this. Miniature horses are a service animal, but I've not seen any in Colorado, so I'm not even going to touch on it. But overall, that was really my piece tonight, was just to come in and say, hey, I'm in your community. I'm interacting in it every day as a business owner and as a patron. So as much as I can help with education to make this easier for all of us, I want to help. I think each and every one of you, especially Steve or Renee. It was Renee. It wasn't you, Steve, that I called. It was Renee Bullock. Yes. When I called him and said, can we just give some education to our community to help me survive and others as the disabled with our service dogs? He went, absolutely. How can I help? And I really appreciate that. So if you have any questions.
Well, it looks like it's lit up pretty good up here, so I'll go through them. Mr. Douglas.
Yes, thank you very much for coming in. You know, I work in public retail, and I had asked to put signage out front about service dogs. That we welcome service dogs because people are bringing the dogs in, puppies and all that, you know, and they were not service dogs.
Right.
But then we also have people who have to have a pet for emotional situations.
Yes.
And so we, you know, I try to educate employees there, you know, what the benefits are and all that, people coming in, and what to look out for, and don't walk up and pet a dog.
Right.
And you have kids walk up, you know, and a lot of people with service dogs will say, hey, I don't mind you pet my dog, but you need to ask first.
Right.
So a lot of people that I come in contact are very, very polite about that. This information, though, would be handy to, there's a way we can get extra copies. I could have those at the store and put them out so people are aware of that. And, you know, Facebook and all that, just people are aware of that because we're coming in a day and age, a lot of people who have disabilities, and it's not right away, maybe later in life. And these dogs aid folks in every day of their life. We have dogs come in and they actually shop. They get things off the shelf with their mouths, and so you'll be surprised how their dogs are trained, and how they perform. So
they really are service.
Yes, they are.
They make a difference.
So I appreciate you doing this, enlighten us. It's out to the public. These are archived. People can go back and look at your presentation and all. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilman Carson.
Kathy, thank you. Very much needed to help inform the public. I've been on planes with service dogs. Last night I was in the movie theater with 2 service dogs. But I do know that the public has the question of, because most of us are used to what you're saying, that service dog wearing that jacket.
Right.
And they're not now. So how is it that we get that out to the public, that this is not, and it's just not a pet, this is a service dog? Because I know those used to say, I'm a service dog, please don't pet me, or...
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I asked that question too. Steve said that he would like more of the little yellow pamphlets. That's easy to get. The ADA resource in Colorado Springs is amazing. They're a national network. Every bit of what you get. I've asked that question, and they went, this is the lady at the ADA in Colorado Springs. She said, that is a really good question. She says, we need to educate the public that they just need to walk on by and it's none of their business. And I went, oh gosh, that's really harsh and cold. And I said, but how do you deliver that message so it's education? She says, it started in Colorado Springs because there's such an army and military down there that there's a lot of service dogs. So in Colorado Springs, they start with this education in the elementary schools. They educate the kids about service dogs in the area. They have therapy, emotional support, and service dogs come into their schools. And so that they start their education in that way. I don't have the answer to how do you identify if it's a service dog or a pet.
Well, I do know, like I said, and then I knew a woman who had a service dog because she had seizures, and the dog could identify when that seizure was going to happen.
Right.
But by being and sitting next to the dog on the plane, sitting with 2 of them in the movie theater, they're extremely well-behaved, trained dogs. I take my dog to PetSmart, and he acts like it's his first outing out. So I would say that their behavior is totally different than a normal household pet. So for our business owners out there, because you did touch on the piece here that your dog has to be in control.
Yes.
So just to be friendly to the business owners, is there anything for them? Or?
I don't, again, my resource guide kind of laid everything out, and it was lawyer approved and everything. And it basically says, as long as that dog is trained and well trained and under control at all times, there is no other but those two questions they can ask. And if people lie, they lie. You have no recourse on that. But it is such a gray area that there is just no to the business owners. I will tell you, Holographic does the trucks and stuff, and we have a lot of truck drivers come in that have dogs. So in our world, it's okay to say, hey, we can't have dogs barking in here. We know it's not a service dog because the dog's just been in the truck and they bring it in. So and they're usually not in control. So we're able to say, in that sense, hey, we need the dog to not bark because we have to answer phones and things. And usually that's not a problem. But I do know and if you go through the service guide, there's a couple of links on there. And I highly recommend that people click on those and read them because there's real cases that our ADA has handled here locally and abroad. And many times when it's called into court or anything, usually the citizen, the disabled, win.
Well, thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
I'm very happy that you have your dog to help you with your needs.
Thank you.
And yes, it's a well-needed piece of education, so thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. McEldowney.
Thank you for coming in.
You're welcome.
It's good to see you. Beautiful, beautiful guy back there.
Thank you.
Not Jimmy.
He's pretty handsome.
I've been a pet owner my entire life. I have great respect for the service animal community and the service that they provide. It's unbelievable the stories you hear about the role they play in someone's life, the challenges they help overcome. It's fantastic. As a dog owner, one of my great frustrations are those dogs that you describe that aren't under control out in public.
Right.
You talk about having people come up and try and pet your dog or otherwise. We've had a couple of instances over the life of my current animals where we've had dogs who aren't well under control. People let them come right up to your dog without first asking and have had a couple of unfortunate instances as a result. I'm a huge advocate for animals, but I'm a huge advocate for people understanding that animals have to be trained. It is for their safety, for your safety, and I'm doubly concerned in the service animal instance where if people, here you've spent so much time and energy developing this relationship and this bond, and if someone comes up with an animal that is not trained and you were to suffer an injury, that animal cannot provide the role or serve the role that they need to provide.
Right.
I say this because I've got one of my dogs is just coming off of better than a month of recovery after a dog off leash in somebody's garage bit my dog's paw. We were walking, minding our own business. They were under voice command, and it was an unfortunate incident. But these things happen in part because we have folks who are not keeping an eye on their critters, and it just makes me think about animals like yours and what happens in those circumstances. And I can only imagine that in public, especially with the proliferation of people with dogs, that it's got to be difficult in the public domain where I can only imagine if you were trying to attend an event or something where, or even big parks, and the presence of other animals and how you police that's got to be difficult, especially without the vest of some sort. And I say that because I don't know that I realized how out of control, and I hate it sounds so harsh, most pets are in this country until I spent 20 days in Europe this summer, and it was in Germany and Austria in particular, and was absolutely shocked because I didn't remember hearing dogs bark. And I didn't remember, there were just things that all of a sudden I realized I wasn't sensing or seeing. And then I really looked around, and there were dogs everywhere. And they were absolutely under command and control the entire time, much like like yours, and you start to realize that there's an entirely different culture where animal ownership is taken very differently in places outside of this country. And
Absolutely.
I saw service animals in action, but even, true pets just completely operating at a different level than what we see here. And I can only imagine the challenges that you must face, in addition to businesses who don't understand that they need to make accommodation for you and your service partner. So just more of an anecdotal commentary than anything. I think it ties into your comments about how do we get the word out. And I think there are a couple of things that have to happen. One is we have to remind people at every level, about the ADA compliance, but also don't let your kid run up to another dog or run up to a dog that you don't know.
Right.
Don't let your animal, approach or, quickly another animal. Get permission, make eye contact. The whole yellow bandana thing that I don't think most people are aware of about if my dog's wearing a yellow bandana or there's a yellow bandana on my leash, that means please steer clear.
Yep.
And people don't know these rules.
No,
and
not unless they're like us, where we're requested. And I do love that you bring up the valid point. It is, as much as I love her, she is not a pet.
Right.
And that, like I said, one of the biggest challenges I have had as a service dog owner versus a pet owner is to be able to tell people, I'm sorry, she's in training, and to pet her right now confuses her. Yeah. And that, you're right, it's really hard. So having more understanding helps so much.
I love the idea of the schools, and I'm not aware of what partnerships we might have in 27 and 14 in terms of exposure to service animals. I feel like maybe in elementary they might, but I don't know that it's a formal, with purpose program, and I think it would be really exciting for us to see what we could do to help have that conversation with both districts about some way to formalize that exposure. And I think, while elementary is a great and logical place to do it, I think it's a captive audience at all grade levels.
All over, yeah.
And would be really important for that attempt to be made. And obviously through, economic development and other partners, how do we get that word out? And as you were talking about business owners not knowing, or an employee at a franchise not knowing, the employee at the franchise is concerning because that's a national franchise who has to know.
Sorry, she wants me.
That's okay. Did she need to come up with you? So she's
well. Yeah, she should. She's in training, but Jimmy was being very kind tonight, and
I don't want to. I mean,
she can come up with you while we're
with
talking.
you, absolutely.
If she wants to, Jessica. Yes, and she normally does. If she can lay right by me, she's in heaven. I was going to say, she might have to go outside. That's usually her alert.
So I'll try and be quick. My thought as you were describing the situation with the franchisee is a concern because you would assume without question that any national franchise and anybody that's employed by a national franchise is going to understand that law. And if they don't, that takes the conversation to a whole other level. Probably needs to go back to your ADA contacts. For us, and for the small business, the sole proprietor, et cetera, when I think this might be a case for us as a city to think about when you secure your business license, one of the things that has to come with you as you have picked up your business license is the awareness of this ADA,
your responsibility,
this ADA ruling, in that we don't want you to get in trouble, right? I mean, a fine of the size that you cite would decimate many small businesses.
Oh, you're saying so many words that make it sound beautiful and singing to me, because that's like that it is so helpful. I can, and I know it sounds crazy, but I can go into Boulder and I never get questioned. And dogs are usually more controlled there too, like you said. When I go into Denver, it's so different. If I come into Commerce City, even Thornton, so different atmosphere. So I think it is. I think it's education.
Yeah. So thank you. I feel like
You're
I talked
welcome.
a lot, but
and I'll help in any way I can.
Okay. I don't know if, from a staff perspective, if the idea of that notification at point of business license issuance or renewal or otherwise, if that's something that requires a motion, or if that's something that staff can look at and come back to us with a word, that would be great.
Cool.
Thank you very much for coming in tonight.
You're welcome.
All right, Councilman Diaz.
Thanks, Kathy, for being here.
You're welcome.
Since it seems like you were needed, I'll definitely keep this brief. But thank you again for coming to present. And I believe you said the key words here are education, education, education. And for example, Councilman McEldowney was talking about bandanas, and I had no idea those bandanas exist, let alone what they actually mean. And so by the same token, as I was reading through your presentation, I learned so much over the weekend while I was reading all 30-something pages of this. Just like the assumption is when you do hear of a service dog, the first thing you think of is like a seeing eye dog.
Yes.
As I was reading through this, there was a really interesting point that you pointed out of, I think it was a Spritzer Terrier, in regards to monitoring your blood sugar level, and how that's one of the different types of service dogs is someone who will sit there and basically monitor your blood sugar level and start licking you,
Right.
Which, spirit of full disclosure, I could probably use. But again, that kind of goes back to the fact of, we watch people park in handicapped parking lots, and we assume that anyone who parks in a handicapped parking lot has to be in a wheelchair or crutches or something, as opposed to other handicaps or disabilities that they might have.
Right.
And so, again, I really appreciate you bringing this to us and really educating us on this, because there were a lot of things that I picked up from that, specifically what I just mentioned. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, I want to thank you both, all three of you. I'll include Jimmy. Thank you all for coming in this evening. What a great update. And I do think there probably are some venues that should be explored. Mr. McEldowney's idea about at time of licensing or renewal of licensing is good. My friend here to my left is the president of our Commerce City Rotary Club. So I think it would be a great presentation
Yes,
to have at a
awesome.
Rotary Club meeting, as well as I think the Commerce City Business Professionals Association. It would be great to have them get an update and have the information, these little packets, available to share with their business owners. And then I forget the name of the organization Maria Gonzalez is with. Someone can remind me of that name? What did you say it was? Adelante. She does a lot of work with the Hispanic businesses in Commerce City.
Oh, that would be awesome.
And so I think all of those different venues would be great to help spread the word. And you did a great job of presenting, and would recommend that you reach out to them. And if you want contact information, I know that the city manager's office can get you the contact information for Adelante, CCBPA, and of course, Renee, as the president of Rotary, can get something lined up to
Yeah, I
have
got
you-
his number. I know how to get in
so
touch
you
with
get
him.
a hold of him, and you can do a presentation at Commerce City Rotary Club. But I think those are some good venues to start with, and then we're always there to help you along your path of educating people on the awareness of service dogs. So
Mr.
thank you
Mayor?
very much for coming in. Yes.
One other comment I thought to make, or forgot to make, was city news. Just making sure that we leverage our city publication to reinforce this. I know staff included an item a couple months ago about animals, but I think perhaps even including, especially during those warm summer months, as we're leading into spring, as we're in summer, people are outside. Those are important times for some of the pet directed notification, but I think your example probably warrants something that we put out there at some interval. Marketing 101, people don't remember things the first time, the only time they hear it. You guys know this better than anyone, right? It's about impressions. And so
Right.
being able to put some of these concepts out there in multiple avenues at various intervals so that suddenly somebody's going to go, oh, I think I have seen that before, and
Well,
it starts to click.
One of the things that I talked to the ADA to get these little pamphlets and told them I was presenting, they actually sent this and asked me to give this to the city too. So they have that because if you need anything, she said, you just call their office, they'll send you anything. Steve, Mr. Douglas might need that for his company. So, yeah, they were very friendly. They're very willing to send you any educational things you need too, so we can all work together.
Awesome. Well,
And
thanks again.
we have the council corner, and one of the council members may decide to make that their Every month, the council member gets to do the council corner. They may want to do it on service dogs, so I'll leave that up to them.
Okay.
I was just recently at one of the concerts in the park, and I know there's several members of the Cultural Council here tonight, but there were 2 dogs in the audience, and everybody was enjoying the concert over at Pioneer Park, and the lady accidentally dropped the leash to one dog and ended up immediately running over and getting in a dog fight. And I just can't imagine that happening with a service animal. So I think being aware of your surroundings, you know, we have leash laws for a reason, and I think that's not just to protect each other, it's to protect our pets as well. So I think it's good awareness for you to come in. We needed to have a discussion about pets in general, but service dogs for our businesses, I think it's important that they understand what the rules are and that everybody treats service animals with respect. So thank you very much for coming in this evening.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, great.
Do I just hand this back to Brian?
Yep.
Yes.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next presentation is going to be the capital program update. I'm going to invite the CIP-CAC KIPCAC co-chair Gordon Hamby and Susan Carbajal forward. And then I'd also like to invite Scott Hergenrader forward to give us this capital program update. And welcome and thank you for being here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I got to be down here, sorry.
Good evening, council members. Mr. Mayor, thanks for having us in tonight. As you mentioned, I'm Gordon Hamby. This is Susan Carbajal. We are the co-chairs of the Capital Improvement Project Citizens Advisory Committee, KIPCAC. Since the formation in 2014, we are increasingly pleased with the committee process. The city has created a process that allows for effective communication flow and dynamic conversations. We'd like to thank you, our City Council, for being so active in the capital improvement program and for listening to us as well as the community. And as you've shown us, our input does make a difference.
In addition to the workings of our committee, we are also proud of the last 6 months of KIPCAC progress. The Turnberry Park and Villages East Park groundbreakings were a blast and included neighboring community members and children. In fact, the Turnberry Park groundbreaking included approximately 300 Turnberry elementary school students. That was a blast. And it was wonderful to see them participate in something so exciting that they will always remember when they visit the park.
That was very cool. The new recreation center design process has been really eye-opening. The amount of detail and expertise that goes into planning and designing something of this stature is absolutely incredible. I'm proud to say that the extensive public outreach the city has completed has led to increased size and programming for the new center. Additionally, plans are simultaneously underway for the existing recreation center design process, and we appreciate being permitted to have input so early in the planning process. These centers mean a lot to the entire city, and I'm really excited to be part of the coordination and input process.
The Capital Improvement Program also includes much-needed roads projects. The last 6 months have been very active with the Tower Road widening project groundbreaking and construction commencement. Our committee is also pleased to see the addition of the Pena Boulevard on-ramp will be coming to fruition. Highway 2 will be entering construction. And I lost my place. Entering construction next, followed by the infrastructure surrounding the new recreation center. There is a lot going on, and it's been great to see the construction coordination so successful at this point.
As representatives of KIPCAC, we'd like to thank you as council members for creating our committee, truly listening to our input. We have included a statement of highlights in your packets that we hope you will take to heart as well. And at this point, we'd like to introduce Scott Hergenrader, the Capital Improvement Program Director.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. It's great to be here. This is the 10th installment of the quarterly updates. We're at the midpoint, 2.5 years into the 5-year program. And if you're all with me, I think one of you made the comment before that time has absolutely flown. It seems like the distance between these quarterly updates is getting closer and closer. But seriously, on behalf of the city management team, our colleagues in Public Works and Parks and Recreation, and my colleague with CH2M Hill, Danielle Yearsley, who's here with me tonight, all I can do is really echo what Gordon and Susan just said, and I'll go through a few more slides, a little bit more detail, but the Citizens Advisory Committee has been an absolute pleasure to work with. We've also had the pleasure of working with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board at some joint meetings, and I think that's created a lot of effectiveness and efficiency in the communication and really getting this information out into the community. I think this really demonstrates, as Gordon and Susan just said, that this is really a team sport, and it really has taken all of you, the KIPCAC, and the community, and we've had a lot of great input. So thank you all for that. My sort of quick midpoint update address. Just as a reminder, though, because one of the tenets that you all had identified was, as you see on the slides here, is spending taxpayer dollars wisely and transparently. And that's part of the reason we're here on a quarterly basis, is to report out to you in that regard. This was, as a reminder, the ballot measure that was passed by the citizens in November of 2013, and it committed to 5 projects in 5 years. The goals were to build high-quality facilities and with lower long-term operations and maintenance costs, deliver the work in 5 years and on time. And so far at mid-year, I'm really pleased to report that we're there. Also, as a reminder, the total budget we've been working with is $137 million, and that's inclusive of all the project budgets, the management costs, as well as the contingency. The first time that debt was issued in June of 2014, it was a total receipt by the city of $78 million. You have the authority to issue up to $166 million. So 78's been issued thus far. We've had the benefit of receiving another $6.9 million, primarily in grants, that's helping to increase the funds for other amenities that we might not otherwise be able to employ. And some examples of that were some additional amenities at the outdoor pool, as well as the neighborhood parks thus far, and the land for the new recreation center. Thus far in the program, we've got $20 million that have been expended. And in terms of the overall tax revenue, as a reminder, this is a 1% addition to the sales and use tax. So as those taxes are collected, that is the underlying funding that the city has pledged in order to receive the bond funds used to build these projects. You can see that 2014 to 2015 in the blue bars, that the tax revenues were on the order of just a little over $10 million. And right now, through 2016, we're staying consistent with that trend, which is about $10 million or a little bit more each year in the revenue. As we look at schedule, again, this is the midpoint of the program, you see with the red line. And you see the bars that were originally identified at the very outset of the program. The gold triangles or diamonds represent where we're at right now. And the green items identify the completed projects. So where you can see the yellow items, the yellow bars, is you can see that we're trending ahead or on schedule for most of the projects. You will notice that the new recreation center is a little bit to the right of that bar. And to the point that Gordon and Susan just mentioned, we're delivering a new recreation center of the size and the shape and with the appropriate future proofing that everyone in the community, yourselves and the KIPCAC wanted. And when we identified that the original site wasn't going to work exactly to meet all of those requirements, with your help and KIPCAC, we identified a parcel adjacent to that. So we're a little bit behind where we thought we were going to be at the outset of the program, but for all the right reasons, we're tracking. Otherwise, we are well on our way to meeting all the expectations of the community for 5 projects in 5 years. To give you a visual on what the value of work in place actually represents, this represents a curve of the dollars of the program over time that would essentially reflect how much work is in place. And you can see here at the midpoint, we're tracking 25% of the value of the work. So the neighborhood parks, the outdoor pool, and the value accredited with the design work that we're doing on the new recreation center represents the work to the left half of this slide. Much of the work going to the right side is the construction of Tower Road, the construction of the new recreation center, and the work on the existing recreation center that will be in the future. So a lot of construction dollars will now be being put into play, and that's going to result in jobs here in the local economy, and it will also increase the sales and use tax for the amount of work that's actually being done at this point in time. So I think we've set the ball on the tee, and we have a lot of really good things coming ahead of us here now. As we look at the 5 projects in 5 years, and our dirty little secret, it's actually 7 projects because we have 3 neighborhood parks that only counts as 1 project of the original 5. You can see that we've got completion and acceptance on 2 of those projects, Frontera Park and the outdoor leisure pool. We are in closeout on the outdoor leisure pool. There were a few more amenities that we added earlier this year to get after the first year of learning. We wanted to make sure that folks had a shade structure to stand in line with to help make sure that they could use the amenity and not get sunburned. So we're now in the closeout phase on that. And as we prepare to come to you then for our 3rd quarter update in 3 months from now, you're going to see some significant progress with those bars moving to the right on there, specifically as it relates to the construction of the new recreation center, the completion of the 2 other neighborhood parks that are currently in construction right now, and start of the existing recreation center in terms of the pre-planning and design. So again, that's a good view as to the progress that's being made. On the CIP front, importantly, a couple of key things that are coming up are the construction bid and award of the Chambers Road multi-use path and bridge. Highway 2 widening is in construction bid and award. Those 2 will be moving to the right. As you know, the Buffalo on the Parks Rec and Golf side, the bottom of the slide, the Buffalo Run Clubhouse improvements have been completed and accepted, and the irrigation work has also been advanced. So good progress on the CIP side as well. Some of the highlights in the 2nd quarter, and again, Gordon and Susan covered several of these points, as we did receive bids and awarded the contract for Tower Road construction, and we issued the 90% plans for the infrastructure and the roadways near the new recreation center. We also completed the schematic design of the new recreation center, and again, had great input from all of you, as well as the KIPCAC and the citizens, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board along the way, and the community. Construction, Tower Road project takes off, and you'll see some familiar faces on this slide for the groundbreaking, so this is an exciting milestone. Tower Road and the new recreation center are our 2 largest projects in the 2K program, so that was a major milestone, and construction is now underway. On the contracting front, the bids for CIP for Highway 2 were received, and the contract for design services for the Pena Tower Road ramp also commenced. And I know that's going to be another major milestone for the city in being able to tie into Pena Road. As we look out in front of us, final designs for the infrastructure and the new recreation center are going to be well underway. On the construction front, Turnberry and Villages East Parks are finishing construction, and so we'll have good news to share about the completion of those when we come back and visit with you all again. We'll start construction and have groundbreaking on the new recreation center. So those are some exciting things coming up for us in Q3. On the CIP front, the environmental and design work on Pena Tower Road ramp will be underway. The contract for construction on Highway 2 will be underway, and the construction of the Chambers Road pedestrian bridge will also be underway. So as you can tell by those curves that we just looked at, there is a lot going on right now. So thank you all for your help in this process, and we would be happy to take any questions you might have.
happy how many times it took to do it?
Thank you.
There, Renee.
Thank you.
That's how we were, too.
It's all good.
It's all good. Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, I'm very pleased at the direction the city that I grew up in is moving. I'm very happy with the projects that this council and staff have been able to accomplish and get underway. I know it's been a busy time for all of our departments, especially with increase in growth and development in our residential sectors as well as commercial and industrial zoned areas. But it's really a pleasure to watch this community change and become a better place to live. And I think being able to have the KIPCAC on board was a way to ensure transparency to our residents, to show that we're using the money for what we said we were going to use it for, and to deliver a better project than what we promised in the end result. And I think we're achieving that. And I lend that credit to the administrative staff as well as the city council for doing a great job for this community. So I really appreciate what you are all doing, and want to thank you all for doing that for my community. So thanks to the KIPCAC. It makes a difference when you pass bond issues and you are able to be honest to the community and be able to show them that you're doing what you said you were going to do. That enables you to be able to do another bond issue at another time. When you lose that trust in the community, you lose that ability to be able to do those bonds, to be able to improve the community for the people that are voting. So it matters a lot to have that oversight piece that KIPCAC gives to this community. So thank you for everything that you do. Now I'm going to go to Mr. Diaz. You have something there? Hold on. That's from last time. Then we'll go to Mr. Bullock.
I would also like to thank you, Scott, and thank you from the KIPCAT, because more eyes on the project means more transparency. We can go out into the community at any time and try to explain to the community what's going on and how we're doing and where the money is being spent. But as the community looks at us as council, there's always they're wondering, are we actually being transparent with them? With the Park Advisory Committee and the KIPCAT and everything, we have more eyes and more voices that can substantiate exactly what we're saying, and the public can see that the projects are on time and online to come on when they should be. And so I just want to thank all the people that are on the KIPCAT and the Park and Recs Advisory Committee, and you, Scott, and everything, for everything that you're doing in helping us be the best council we can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And you, just as a quick comment on that, you appreciate the thanks. That's great. You've heard me say this before, but most of the folks in the city all had a day job before this program came along, and there has been a lot of heavy lifting. And so when you hear me thanking our colleagues in Maria's team in Public Works and Carolyn's team in Parks and Rec, the city management team, city attorney's office, the community development team, the finance team, the communications team, every single one of these groups and the staff on their teams are playing an enormously active role, and there are thousands and thousands of transactions occurring behind the scenes. So they're doing a phenomenal job, and I just want to make sure that they get the due credit for what they've been doing on this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Staff also.
All right, Councilman Carson.
Thank you, everyone. Actually, there's a lot of thank yous that need to go out here. I'll start with the council who had enough vision to know what this community needed and knew that this community, if you did it in a transparent way, would stand behind it. Then the citizens of Commerce City, because none of this would happen without them. The QCI, who now is turned into our KIPCAT. Those are our citizens who are willing to actively engage within their community to engage with others. A vital piece of this. I'm not sure we'd have been successful without the QCI. And Scott, you're right. Staff needs a big thank you because staff actually went out aggressively and happily and helped us campaign to pass this ballot measure, knowing more so than what we realized, what we were putting on their plate. And we increased their workload tremendous. All of us were just excited that we were going to get these things. You were the workers, and honestly, without this whole team, none of this would have happened. And thank you to staff, and thank you to everybody who's working so hard to make sure that we keep the citizens informed of where we're at with this. So that's all one other piece. Don't forget you did vote to do this to Tower Road. Don't forget you did want Highway 2 also done. Because it's going to be very difficult and very trying of our patients for a while. But good things will come at the end. So thank you.
Mr. McEldowney.
Scott took my comments. I was going to point out staff involvement in all of this. We thank you, and not to belittle the function that you play in terms of coming up and providing the slides. I know there's a ton in the background, but you're absolutely right. This is every day. It's everybody, all hands on deck, and I think it's easy for us to sit here or in our study session updates to kind of put the blinders on and look at the slides and not truly appreciate how many gears are moving very fast to try and make this thing happen. And I think, so the thank you goes to each of our department heads and your staffs for balancing the day jobs, as Mr. Hergenrader puts it, and these activities, which in many cases have become the day job focus for now. I think the other thing that I want to point out, and the slides that we see in these quarterly updates have started to show that, what started with a plan to deliver these projects that were part of the 2K effort has, again, it's transformed how we manage all of our capital improvement efforts. And I think, to me, as I sit here looking at how different we approach those tasks today versus when I first sat down on City Council in 2007, it's light years away. It's such a more heads-up way of doing business. It allows us to do the transparency that we talk about. It's one thing to say we want to be transparent. It's another to have the processes, the procedures, the methods in place that allow you to do that. And I think what happens is not only does it allow us to be transparent with the community and allow or enable groups like KIPCAC to play an active role, it enables groups like KIPCAC to not only, to also help talk about the successes. We're not trying to hide things that aren't going well. We're actively celebrating on a regular basis the success of this endeavor. And I think being able to start to do that same thing on these other efforts like Highway 2 and others that were not part of the voter approved package but have been made possible through, again, the efforts of this council and the staff to make those things happen, it's really important. And it's nice to be able to celebrate these things as opposed to try and, come at things in a very different reactive way. And I think that, to me, warrants compliment to staff. And I think it positions us to now, again, kind of take these steps to the next plateau. And I'm excited to see where and how we grow beyond this as we gain this mastery of taking out the lessons that we're getting from Scott and team and just growing and really getting that experience and seasoning in terms of approaching things this way. It means that the next phase of 2K or our other projects are going to be that much more successful. And so for that, I want to say thanks.
Mr. Amador.
I just want to echo what everyone else has said. And as a city that I grew up in, we are growing. And with that growing, there are going to be growing pains. And with the growing pains, I look at everything that's going on as far as the 2K. We say 5 projects in 5 years, but it's actually more like 7 because we have 3 community parks in one bundled in there. And then as I look through the slides, I think I counted another 11 projects that are going on, and they're big projects. They're not small. And so as council, what we can say is we've heard our residents, and thank you for voting for the 2K and allowing us to do these projects. But we're in a very peculiar position now, because now that we've heard you, we need to execute. And when we execute, there's going to be some growing pains. So I just hope that the residents that are watching are patient with this Highway 2 and Tower Road. I mean, there are some infrastructure pieces that we need to execute, and that time is now. And so thank you to everyone, the staff, the residents, CM2H Hill, for making this happen for us. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Councilman, and I know that there will be some pain that's associated with that, and I think we would just ask that when you're motoring public in Commerce City, seeing orange cones, instead of thinking pain, think another word that starts with a P, progress, because this really does represent that which they voted for, and we're now causing to happen. So short-term pain will yield long-term gain in this regard. So thank you for bringing that message out, though, because it is important for people to understand that this is what they were seeking, and we're there. Thank you.
Mr. Douglas.
Yes, thanks, Scott, and thank you, staff, and everybody's efforts. This started out with the water park that was much needed down at Parenthood Park for years. We told our citizens to up north where people have seen signs out front of their house for 12 years saying Future Park. So I appreciate the citizens for allowing the 2013 ballot to go forward. Everybody has, I don't want to repeat what everybody has already said. I echo everyone who has spoken, and I know myself, I've had some challenges and put those challenges to our staff and to you guys, and we have worked together to make sure what our citizen needs are, and up front, and we made that happen. But that's also working together, also us doing our homework, not coming in just thinking this stuff is going to happen without talking about it and really displaying the concerns people have heard, and to actually see the water park when it came to fruition, people just are ecstatic about it. They talk about it all the time. So going forward here, we're going to do the opening for Turnberry here on the 15th, and then after that, also on the park on 16th. And so, no, I appreciate everybody's efforts. We're not done yet. We're about halfway. No time to relax. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Councilwoman Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thanks is not enough. I know we've already thanked so many people, beginning with council, to our residents, to our staff. The staff has worked diligently to continue to work hard every day to make this become a reality to our residents. And on a regular basis, I can't say that I've heard any negative comments. In fact, I think people are actually amazed that things are coming out as fast as they are. And even then, just recently going to a CML conference in Vail, I still interact with other municipalities, and I still get the questions, how did you do it? How did you guys pass this? We're still trying to work on that in Wheat Ridge and Lakewood. I've had questions, and it said, you go to the voters. You go out there, you educate our residents. It was a long traveling roadshow, but it was with a lot of help with staff and your organization as well. So again, just kudos to everyone involved. And yes, there's going to be some pain. Ironically, I just have to share this. I was driving in from a very long drive from Arkansas, and I was on I-70 just as I was pulling into Aurora, Denver boundaries, and there was those the flashing signs that said road rage. Don't hang on to it. Be like Elsa. Let it go. and I saw that like 3 times. I said, that is so corny, but that's so catchy at the same tone. So maybe it's something we can consider. Maybe not that message exactly, but something close to it. But thanks again to everyone.
All right. Thank you again. Thank you, KIPCAC members, Gordon Hamby and Susan Carbajal for coming in. Again, you're very appreciated, and we can't wait to see the future progress continue. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of council.
All right, next item on the agenda is going to be the work plan update from Mr. McBroom.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to tell you, after that presentation, I feel like I should just say good night and see you next time. It's going to be tough to follow. We made reference to it a few times. City staff had day jobs before we initiated the 2K capital program. Well, this is kind of an overview that we do on a quarterly basis of our day job. We knew that folks in the community still have high expectations for the service that we're going to deliver to them on a day in, day out basis. Although they appreciate we're working on these projects, they still have high expectations for us to provide high quality services. So the work plan is an opportunity for us to thoughtfully plan our work at the start of the year, factor in key council priorities, staff priorities, organization-wide initiatives, and make sure that we're properly aligned with council's goals and that we've thoughtfully allocated resources throughout the whole year. We know that a certain amount of our work involves reacting to the needs of the community on a daily basis, but we know that to the extent to which we can proactively plan our work will be much more effective. So this is the second quarter update. The second quarter concluded July 1st, so the data in the report is through mid-year. The first set of updates has to do with the first City Council goal regarding developing a balanced and vibrant economy to improve socioeconomic status. So in terms of the work from our economic development team, along with Mayor Ford, did attend the ICSC Recon Annual Conference towards the end of May, interacted with over 30 retail real estate businesses. We know that retail development continues to be a key focus of City Council. Additionally, we celebrated National Small Business Week this spring, had a number of activities surrounding Small Business Week. Although we appreciate the large companies in our community, the fact of the matter is a majority of the revenue and the jobs in this community are generated by small businesses. We also hosted the Colorado Minority Office Procurement Training Program at our Small Business Resource Center. The Small Business Resource Center continues to host monthly training programs along with our partnership with Adelante Community Development. City Council helped us celebrate a ribbon cutting at Mail Express and an important groundbreaking at Dion's Pizza in the second quarter. Additionally, our economic development team showcased the city on a bus tour organized by the Metro North Chamber of Commerce. 75 attendees spent the better part of the day learning more about what's going on in Commerce City. And we were fortunate enough to be able to help a couple of important companies in Commerce City celebrate milestone anniversaries in the second quarter. The economic development team also responded to 25 prospect inquiries. Prospect inquiries don't necessarily lead to new businesses, but we know that the more prospect inquiries we get, the more opportunities we have to make proposals to these prospects, the greater our chances are of bringing in important new companies into the community. The George T. Sanders Company did announce a new 76,000 square foot distribution center in the community. It'll bring 30 jobs and over $6 million in new private investment in the community. American Down and Feather, we worked with them to retain their manufacturing operations in the city. We helped facilitate their purchase of some additional space in order to help them grow right here in Commerce City. As I mentioned previously, retail continues to be a key focus of our economic development efforts. We did see some new retail activity in the second quarter, a new 7-Eleven restaurant, a couple of commitments from new fast food restaurants. Both Popeye's Chicken and Kentucky Fried Chicken have committed to the 104th Avenue corridor, and work continues towards the redevelopment of the Mile High Graham Park. Not only do we want to facilitate development within the private sector, In the case of the Mile High Greyhound Park, we're absolutely a partner at the table to help assure a successful redevelopment of an important piece of property in the core city. The Economic Development Team does track a number of economic development indicators, so we combine as part of this quarterly updated data on our economic growth indicators. Those items in red in the second quarter column are areas of focus for us. Those are items that are not trending the way we would like them to, so our challenge is to understand why they're trending the way they are and what can we do to influence those trends. We would like to improve those trends and see them turn to green in the third and fourth quarters this year. Construction activity continues to be brisk in our community. I'm not sure there's another community in Metro Denver with as much new construction activity going on as there is in Commerce City. Single-family residential construction alone is going to far exceed our projections at the start of the year. As part of the 2016 budget, we projected 353 new single-family homes. Based on the current trend, we think it'll be much closer to 500. That is a bit of a double-edged sword. We know that with new residential construction, there is a use tax. It does pump money into the local economy, generates demand for retail. But with each of those new homes, we have increased more residents with increased demands for service from us. So not only are we tracking the revenue and the economic impact of new residential construction, it enables us to project demand for city services so that, again, we have our heads up and can effectively project needs for future services. But regardless, construction activity is brisk throughout town. It's very much taxing our development review folks. We are stretched to the limit in our ability to process new development in the customer service fashion that we are committed to doing. As much activity as there is in the community, we continue to focus on organizational development. It's important as our organization grows, as city administration grows, that we do that in a thoughtful manner. Good things to report in the second quarter. We did launch a new performance management system to better manage employee performance throughout the organization that goes well beyond an annual performance evaluation. Additionally, the city's wellness program continues to see increased utilization from our employees. Not only does it make us healthier, but it lowers our costs to provide health insurance to our employees. So that's been very positive. A challenge for us is better managing the thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of records that we utilize as a public agency. So we have a staff team that's committed to updating how we manage records in the organization, and they've developed a roadmap for us to move in the direction of a much more sophisticated means of managing all of our records. The safety program is moving along. You met tonight Brendan Mendes, the city's new risk manager, who started at the very end of the second quarter. We're thrilled to have him. He was with the Douglas County School District prior to joining us, so he has a tremendous amount of experience, and we're thrilled about the positive impact he'll have on the staff here. Full-time employee turnover is less than our goal, but still higher than we'd like to see. It's a challenge for all of the agencies in Metro Denver. In a strong economy, we're seeing strong demand for high-quality employees throughout the region. So it's a challenge for us to continue to attract and retain high-quality folks. And as you know, we've started in earnest on the budget process. The budget process really starts earlier in the year, but it really starts in an intense fashion during the second quarter. Along with the capital projects that are a key focus of the cities, we're full swing into growing season capital maintenance. So mowing is well underway, was well underway in the second quarter. Our concrete pavement management program well underway in the second quarter. You heard a presentation tonight on the CDBG consolidated plan. Much of that work to develop that plan occurred in the second quarter. Additionally, we're continuing to manage our fuel consumption. Again, our effort is to spend resources wisely, provide work units in the city appropriate resources, but also encourage using them in a very frugal fashion to be as wise with spending city tax dollars as possible. The city was fortunate enough to be a partner in a grant that we received called the GoCo Inspire Initiative. Work with focus groups in our community occurred in the second quarter, providing very important positive feedback about the utilization of those services in our community. And City Council will recall that on June 6th, we were the first community recognized as an elite status community under the statewide Live Well Heal program. So that was an important achievement for our community, showing not only our administration's commitment to health and wellness, but the community's commitment to health and wellness. Plenty of activity in our youth services area. We were busy in the hiring process of a new employee who will provide staff support to the Youth Commission, amongst other duties, and happy to report that that new employee will be starting employment with us here in the third quarter. And the Youth Commission had 21 of its 22 spots filled in the second quarter. An important endeavor. If the Youth Commission is going to be effective, it's important to keep those spots filled, with it, which is a challenge with young people and the dynamic lives that they lead. Neighborhood Services had a very productive second quarter towards their effort to encourage appropriate property maintenance for private property owners throughout the community. A couple of important bits of information here. The number of courtesy notices is increasing. The number of courtesy notices is increasing. The number of notices of violation is decreasing. Courtesy notices are just that. They're courtesy notices to bring to a property owner's attention that they have a violation. Our goal is to see that violation voluntarily corrected before a case progresses to a notice of violation. So those are both important. We want to see plenty of activity from our neighborhood services team, but I like that there's a greater number of courtesy notices, a lower number of cases that proceed to a notice of violation. We did have 10 court cases in the second quarter. But 2 of those court cases actually have to do with a case that Councilwoman Elliott brought to our attention. It was that cell phone stand at the Adams County Human Services Building. Sadly, we did not receive voluntary compliance in that case, so it was necessary for us to proceed and issue at least 2 citations in that case. The police department tracks a great deal of data to help manage their work. We are seeing some trends that we don't like that you'll notice in the table. They're an area of focus for the police department. As you know, we continue to struggle to fill vacant spots in the police department. We've authorized the overhiring in the police department. We've encouraged the department to continue hiring regardless of the number of budgeted positions within the department. So the key is to continually manage that pipeline of trying to attract high-quality folks, both certified and non-certified, to come work for the Commerce City Police Department. That certainly had an impact on their ability to provide service out to the Commerce City community. In terms of our engagement with the community, a number of metrics that we track. Some things of note in the highlights column. We did see a tremendous number of participants in community events in the second quarter. Most of that was the Memorial Day Parade. City Council did conduct a telephone town hall in February. Average call duration was 24 minutes. 60 individuals stayed on for the call more than 40 minutes, which is an increase from the last telephone town hall. And as council and hopefully the community knows, our body-worn camera program was fully implemented in the second quarter. Officers began wearing body cameras at the start of the third quarter, early last month. I'm moving quickly. Happy to return back to any of the information should you have questions. The last slide, certainly not the least important. I might consider this one of the most important slides in the whole presentation. How are we doing from a financial standpoint? Good news is our revenue exceeds our expenditures. even though some of our revenue lags, so some of the revenue numbers are not through all the way through the second quarter. Regardless, both 2K and non-2K general fund revenues are both exceeding what we projected in the 2016 budget while we continue to manage expenditures very effectively. I believe we've provided adequate resources for employees to provide high-quality services to the community, but I really appreciate how well folks manage spending within the organization. It's important for us to be effective, but to do it in as cost-effective a manner as possible. So good information on the slide, both in terms of our 2K revenue and our non-2K general fund revenue. So that's a whirlwind tour through operations and maintenance through the second quarter, and happy to answer any questions. Extremely proud. As we talked earlier, employees are under a tremendous strain as we try to execute the capital projects, while at the same time we know that demand for high-quality city services continues to rise, and we're absolutely committed to providing great services, meeting a level of service expectations throughout the community. And I think we've done a terrific job through the first half of the year. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
I want to start off by saying thanks. It's great to see we're tracking properly on all fronts. There were a couple of things I wanted to mention. The noxious weed program that we started this year with Adams County, I think has been tremendous. When I see the dead thistle, where we had living thistle in the past, and along Highway 2, you know you're doing something right when you don't have Mr. Murray in the audience complaining about weeds along Highway 2 or noxious weeds. The noxious weeds, that's something that he took very seriously as a farmer, and it's something that I think was starting to wear on council. But to get to quarter two, to where we're at now, most of the way through the summer already, into the dry part of the summer, the dry hot part, not to see the growing noxious weeds throughout our community. It has made a huge difference for me. I have noticed that the weeds have been treated this year, and was really proud to see that throughout the spring. I do have a question. I know no parking signs went up in the cul-de-sacs at River Run, and it's for the slurry seal program. And I do know that they came around a couple of weeks ago and crack sealed the cul-de-sac that I live on. But other than that, I haven't seen any activity, and now I'm getting people starting to get antsy about why are we still not allowed to park when there's nothing going on? And it's been several, 3 weeks or 4 weeks now, and so you can't, it's Monday through Friday, 7 to 5 or something, that you can't park in the cul-de-sac bulbs. And so the downside to that is people weren't parking in them. Now people are starting to ignore the signs and park in them, and I don't want Public Works to end up with a problem when they come to slurry seal, because everybody just kind of said, yeah, but those signs have been here a long time, they're not doing anything. So do we have an update on when that slurry seal may take place, so that people, because they're starting to give up on the signs, and I hate to see that.
Yes, Mayor, thank you for bringing up that issue. Those would have been Public Works that installed those signs, those temporary no parking signs, so we should have taken those down after we completed the crack seal. They're not planning to do the seal coat until like mid-September.
Oh, yeah.
So we've still got a good month and a half before they get out there. So we will remove those
the people that
tomorrow.
park in the cul-de-sac, they are freaking out because they've been there for about a month.
Yep, we will remove them tomorrow for
All
sure.
right, thank you very much. The other one is I wanted to make it clear, because I know we were just looking at the list on here, brought it to mind. I did mention to Mr. McBroom, there's a problem with dust on 112th Avenue from the golf course east with the construction. We were several of us were out there golfing the other day, and it's just when a truck goes by, there's a cloud that sits there for 20 minutes. And I know I received some calls. It's impacting the people in Columbine Ranches, as well as the 86th Avenue issue for Allied and up for JBS Pipeline. So, I talked to Brian, and my request was anything we can do in the interim of coming up with a new slurry seal, The sooner the better, because I've been about 3 months into complaints about dust, and it just seems like it's a hotter, drier summer than what we're used to, and these businesses are really pounding down my door. Maria, you got something on the dust abatement there?
Yes, I'd like to update you on that as well. We just signed the contract today with our dust control. We had to go out for bids to get that. But we're going to do something different on 112th. We took some samples, and it actually, the materials on the top of that road don't have a lot of binder, so they don't have a lot of clay. So even when we were putting down the dust suppressant in the past, it didn't work very well because it had nothing to bind to. So we're going to mix up, put some binder and some material that will better absorb that material. So we're going to do that within the next couple of weeks, apply that dust suppressant, and I think we'll see a great deal of improvement out there on 112th as well as 84th.
Yeah, the 86th Avenue, I believe it is.
Or excuse me, 86th
Yeah,
Avenue.
they just, I know the one guy just got a letter and he said, you know, this is just crazy. We've been living through hell dealing with this problem. And so the sooner the better that we can get some of those services, even if it's before a long-term plan, you know,
Yep.
just something that can help slow down the complaints. But I appreciate the efforts. And one more, while we're still on the work plan, what's going on here, Peoria Street. I had another complaint. Mr. Murray called me again today. Where are we at with the ditch company issuing? And I told him the ditch company permit issue was what's holding it up. But, however, me and JD live in that neighborhood, and I can tell you we get bombarded about the fact that Peoria, you know, the problem isn't that it's closed and there's construction going on. It's that it's closed and nobody sees anything going on, and that makes it even tougher for people to avoid it. And I've seen some cars now starting to go around the barricades. So where are we at with that, and can we expect reopening soon?
Yes, so just a little bit. It is getting the permit from FRICO that's caused us a delay. They did request that we prepare plans for this repair. We've done that. They want a bond from us and some other documents. So we've been gathering that. All of that should be, the plans are already in. They are going to review those as soon as we get all the other documents in. So we should have the performance bond into them tomorrow. If they can expedite the review, we hope to start that work next week.
Right. And
so we're still looking at another week before we can start.
One last thing that I can't forget. You guys did a great job on 112th getting that reopened at Second Creek. I'm glad that you got it opened, and I have already been receiving calls about how nice it looks and the fact
good.
that it is reopened. So thank you. Anybody else? Mr. McEldowney.
Thank you. Before I go into the 2 points I had, I wanted to follow up on the FRICO Peoria question. This is obviously frustrating. I know it's got to be frustrating for your staff. It's frustrating for all of us. Job one right now is to get this thing fixed, but I think job two is a post-mortem and a legitimate sit-down, very strong sit-down with FRICO. We can't have a community partner such as FRICO completely hamstringing us from fixing a public road. We have so few east-west and north-south corridors that to see a critical corridor like Peoria shut down for as long as it's been, it's completely unacceptable. If I hadn't heard a more as positive an update as I just did, I would have been prepared for us to make a motion to send a letter of some strongly worded nature to FRICO to move things along. I think failing a response, I think we need to fix the road and deal with ramifications on the back end if there is any further delay. And frankly, again, I know the mayor and I have talked about this before. We're both, I think seething would be a good word, and I'm sure you and your team are as well. It's not something that we can see happen again. We've got a number of places where FRICO crisscrosses roads in our community, and I'd like to figure out how whether it's an MOU or some sort of a document that we can craft that outlines how we're going to handshake on these things so that we have an ability to sort of fast track under certain circumstances and sort of deal with the details on the back end. And if they find that we did something outside of the normal protocol, then they can come and get us. But this is one that we can't allow to repeat. So the two that I had, and no more public works, so
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Maria.
The comments on growth are interesting for a couple of reasons. And one of the things that the mayor and I heard at our most recent Water Commission meeting was some of the practices that we've been very frustrated by with South Adams in terms of development needing to bring water to the table. That's been a very uniquely Commerce City / South Adams practice for some time, and we've heard over time that that's been a factor in our growth. We've heard it at our developer meetings, and I know Public Work or Community Planning and Development have heard it on their end. We've heard it over and over again. What we heard, and make sure I phrase this correctly, what we heard at our most recent meeting is that is now moving into the norm. Many communities, particularly some of our key neighbors, are heading very quickly in that direction, namely Brighton, and they're not in a position because they're just moving down this path to have a mature process. So some of the things that we've only just really accomplished in literally the last year with South Adams in terms of having now conversations on Phase 4 water and having these auction discussions and being able to have water in hand to use in an economic development incentive sense, they're not there. And what the mayor and I were talking about in that meeting was that's going to have an interesting impact because they're in a similar position to us in terms of finished lots and raw lots. And so from a residential development perspective, it would be interesting for us to revisit projections in terms of what that might mean for us versus our neighbors. And I know that through the 27J Capital Facility Fee Foundation, I get a report monthly on permit activity for all of the municipalities that contribute to 27J, and it's interesting to see where we've always been sort of the top dog and where we've seen Thornton sort of creep up over time. I think it's kind of leveling out in Thornton a little bit. I know that they are going to be doing a ton of new development near the new high school, but I think Brighton's going to start to taper down again, and I would be curious to see what those implications are for us in terms of, obviously we talk about 112th, we talk about, Tower Road north of 104th. Those are going to be some interesting things, but the water tie-in to me is going to be sort of a new variable that I don't think any of us had really accounted for. I know water becomes a huge factor, and I don't know that there's a lot of water that we have that would readily be usable in their environment. So it's, something for staff to think about.
Can I add to that real quick?
Yeah.
I'm glad that Jason brought this up because I think it is very important, especially from an economic development standpoint. I'm literally, as a water broker, working with people trying to develop in Brighton and needing to go out and find, Burlington, Wellington shares or Fulton shares, and having to do the research on those. I do the research on that stuff, and usually a contract will take up to a year to be able to do all the historical use on a couple of shares of water to be able to get a development off the ground. And so I'm starting to see that struggle that we went through early with raw water, bringing raw water to the table. Then I think the other benefit of what's going on is we just heard South Adams bring forward through the Raftella study, that they're looking at reduction in their residential water tap fees, which is one of those indicators on the Raftella study that impacts our ability to be competitive from a residential development standpoint. And I can't thank them enough for looking at their fees and working with us to become more viable from a development factor in the region. So there's some really good things happening, but I think number one key thing is with this Phase 4 water that has come online, and now the Phase 4B, the end result is from the water that is anticipated from the wells that are going in on 104th and the Platte, is that it would be able to be enough water for Commerce City to develop out up to the airport. Everything that we have up to the airport, which to say that is a very, very big deal for Commerce City, because up to the airport is, another 30, 40 years worth of development. And to know that we're whole with the water. And when South Adams manager has to say, the state, when it comes to water issues, is saying, you guys have enough. And other communities are now becoming envious because of the fact that we have so many years worth to rely upon full development, that they're actually starting to get, these dirty looks in water court because they have protected our opportunity to grow from a water resource. So I have to, as part of this, say thank you to South Adams, and that partnership continues to seem to grow, and that's what we need with all of our entities in Commerce City. So thanks, Jason.
Thank you. To pick back up on the growth question, the thing that I wanted to get to, and this was hinted at in Mr. McBroom's comments about sort of the double-edged sword of growth. Obviously, if we're going to see 500 versus 300 homes, we know that the one side of this growth picture is that increases support needs, whether it's officers on the street, lane miles to be cared for, all of those municipal services that come with that growth. The other thing that comes to mind for me is the stories that I heard coming onto council about the workloads in community planning and development in terms of inspections, permit reviews, et cetera. And I wonder what we can be doing in terms of, I know we're in this sort of constant improvement mindset, but what can we do to take a fresh look again at what we're doing in terms of those inspections? And the thing that comes to mind, there's a gentleman in the neighborhood that does a number of improvements, basements, and a general contractor that lives in the community. I know Steve knows him, and he's worked with a number of folks that we know. But it's fascinating to hear his comments on how inconsistent his experience as a GC is in Aurora versus Commerce City versus other cities, the things that don't require any permits in certain circumstances, the things that have crazy permit requirements, the difficulties of other communities versus us. Very complimentary on the fact that our inspectors, from his perspective, are some of the few in the world, or in his world, who actually have real-world experience out in the field, and how in many communities, and we always hear the bad, but the good is that gives a guy like him as a GC an ability to have trust in that this individual is able to interpret on the ground things that might not jive with what's on the drawing that was submitted, versus other communities where if it doesn't match exactly what's on that drawing, you're forced to stall, stop, kick things back, revise drawings, there are sort of puts and takes. But I think the one thing that I heard from him that we've talked before about is just sort of that overall throughput. What are we doing today that, and Mr. McBroom, you say this all the time, are we doing the right what, right? We might be doing a lot of things, but are those things really adding value, right? Well, we've always asked for a permit for this, or we've always done a review at this point, or I would just like us to question those things, especially with this increased permit activity. And yes, I know that there are those whispers out there that we're going to see, a slowdown ultimately in the housing market. But at the same time, there's a lot of momentum out there. And if other communities start to stall, we've seen it in reverse, where things were easier elsewhere, and so development went elsewhere. I'm hopeful that we've lined things up such that the momentum would be there for folks to continue to operate and develop here, where they might be forced to slow down elsewhere. And I want to make sure that we're in a position to accommodate that growth without necessarily adding a ton of new heads. Are there things that we can just stop doing or do less of or do differently that would allow us to accommodate those things, if that makes sense? And then lastly, I know I've chatted on for quite a bit here. The question about the neighborhood services data, the courtesy notices versus notices of violation. I know the comment was we'd like to do more courtesy notices versus notices of violation, but I think I can't say that that's the right goal unless I know that the outcome is more people are in compliance, right? At the end of the day, how many people that we give courtesy notices to ultimately come into compliance without going to the next step? I'd like to see that data shown in more of a, we issued 1,000 courtesy notices. Of those, 422 went to a notice of violation because they failed to comply even with an extension, if that makes sense. It would be great to know that, X number of them went on and complied without any further drama. But either way, looking at total contacts that represents, to me that indicates a lot of activity, a lot of workload for our neighborhood services staff. So is it the most efficient use of that time? We want to build good relationships in the community, but at the same time, do we need to kind of look at what we've learned and figure out what's the sweet spot in terms of notice versus, or courtesy notice versus actual violation, and simply getting things under control? Does that make sense?
It certainly does. And the summary data that we've provided attempts to tell that story, but I think there's additional information we could provide that would probably tell that story better. That is the goal. Compliance voluntarily would be the goal. It's striking the right balance between getting good coverage across the city while at the same time doing it in a customer-friendly manner. There are other communities in the metro area that get more production, so to speak, out of fewer employees, but all they do are mail notices. There's no human contact.
Yeah.
Nobody ever knocks on the door to provide some education. So we do try to find the right balance between making sure we're providing a consistent enforcement throughout the community while at the same time doing it in a manner that's considerate and respectful.
Hey, thank you.
Mr. Douglas.
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate the second quarter update. Just want to ask a few questions here. One is just for Maria. I saw that we're now going to go for a pedestrian bridge now instead of the road being widened.
Councilmember Douglas, excuse me. We were evaluating that. We're
Okay.
recommending that we continue on course right now with the widening of the bridge, the existing roadway bridge.
Oh, okay. Because
Yes.
I see in here in the capital update, it showed that it was a pedestrian bridge.
Oh.
So I thought we were going to have a standalone. If
No.
we're looking at that.
We did evaluate that option, but I think it's going to take additional time and money beyond even the higher costs of widening the existing bridge. I apologize for the confusion.
Okay, because I know those bids came in. We were thinking they were under 100. They came under $600,000, $500,000.
Yeah, the third time was not a charm, and it came in higher than we expected again. But in running the numbers, we still feel that it's cheaper to stick with the current proposed idea of widening the existing bridge rather than doing the standalone. And we'll be able to complete it yet this fall.
Okay.
But just to clarify, there will be a pedestrian bridge. It's just being constructed adjacent to the existing bridge instead of being separated.
Correct, yeah.
So you're saying it's all tied with it or along the path?
It will be part of the existing bridge, but separated so that only pedestrians, no cars, can travel on that portion of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And the other thing, we're getting ready to open the park up here in a few weeks. Not the Turnberry, but the 117th and 16th park. I know we had asked about this before. Is there going to be also put in a flashing crossing from the west side to the east side on 117th? Because I have a lot of people asking, because you have a lot of kids going to go play in that park, and it's not very safe to cross that road right now.
That's a fair question. At this point in time, the project scope does not include any sort of pedestrian crosswalk in the area of the park. It's something that we can evaluate and come up with sort of some initial estimates for budgeting purposes, what that project might cost. I don't know that it's the sort of thing we could do within the scope of that existing project. We would have to identify some additional funds for that.
Okay. If there's some leftover money, that's been put to the side because a trade-off with those open space grants, If we can find out or have something in place, because when we open this park, we get a lot of people asking, how are kids going to cross the street safe? Because that looks very attractive to go over there and use it. And even before then, people going the opposite way to Stampede Park, going from the east side of 117th over to the west side has been a challenge. So it's going to be even more of a challenge going to that brand new park with all those amenities, picnic, baseball, basketball, everything over there. That just been looking at, as a dirt site. I'd say on a weekly basis, I get about 25 people asking that same question. So I'd just like for us to prepare ourselves to have something in place to say we're going to look at doing a study to make sure either reducing the traffic speed and putting those flashing yellow like we did for the RTD zone. Because I know on 60th we have talked about that, and people have commented that it saved a lot of lives by having that put in, and we have 2 of those in that zone on 60th. So that'd be another thing. It's not a safe block to school, but a safe block to the park. So I appreciate that.
I would just echo Mr. Douglas's comments. I know that
$5.
that was a question that actually came up during our
$10.
Siri. That was a town hall. Town hall.
$20. Keep it going, Mr. Bullock.
Just turn it off.
Just turn it off.
It wants to talk to
Go ahead, Jason. You got the floor.
It was a question that came up during our
$30?
town hall, and I was out of the loop after that, and I expected that was something that was getting looked at through that. So I would really look at. I think we need to be able to say that Chambers corridor has been fully considered to the extent we can without having the widening occurring in those narrowed sections, and ideally sooner than later. Ultimately, we're going to have to sort out the 112th Avenue. I mean, we'll get 112th Avenue sorted out to the west, but so thanks for bringing that up, Steve.
Thanks. Thank you.
The good news is we've done similar projects like that in the not-too-distant past, so it shouldn't be that hard for us to develop a rough estimate for at least budgeting purposes on what it would cost to add that improvement.
Mr. Amador. He's taking a break. All right. Well, Renee has violated now, 5 times in 10 minutes, 2 minutes.
I think Siri had a question. What was it?
Yeah, what was Siri wanting to know? About 104th.
Why I touched her?
All right. Well, I know Mr. Amador had his light lit up, and he probably had, I think I might hear him. Mr. Amador, we're waiting for you. Still on the second quarter work plan.
I believe my light was on from last time, but since
Oh.
you did call on me, I will say good job.
All right, thank you. All right, seeing that we're done with that, thank you, staff. That was a good report. We'll move into the administrative business of the City Council. I know after talking to our interim city attorney, Robert Sheasley, that he has one request for us to take up as a council, and it is to appeal a court case. You want to mention what that is?
Sure,
so
I'll
we can
briefly
ask for the
introduce.
motion?
I don't know if Mr. Gaylor did this previously. He indicated he didn't usually, but I think it's important to bring it in front of you. And sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but there was a Department of Revenue ruling in the past month against the city in a refund matter that I sent a memo briefing the council on last week, and so I'd like to have the council's authorization to file paperwork to preserve our right to appeal that and proceed with outside counsel. And I've prepared a motion for anybody that wants to make it if there
I'm
are no
open
questions.
for that motion. Mr. Bullock?
I move to authorize the city attorney to appeal the final determination of the Department of Revenue in the matter of AT&T affiliates and the taxpayers class versus Commerce City using outside counsel.
Thank you. Mr. McEldowney?
I was actually going to request a brief recess to get some additional input from Mr. Sheasley for council. I don't want to raise my questions in public given the nature
No, I
of the matter.
appreciate that. If you wanted to move to go into executive session.
Yeah, I would actually, I would look for the city attorney to cite the appropriate.
Let me deal with the motion.
Okay.
We need to get the
Yes,
motion
just-
off the floor.
Sure, if you wanted to have a second on that. or
So,
however.
I need a second. No second? Mr. Teeter?
You want a second to the motion, or you want to deny the motion?
If you had a second to the motion, then you
Second.
could move into executive
Yep,
session.
second
and
to
then
the
vote.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second, and I have a request to move the second, the motion into executive session for attorney-client privileges pursuant to what?
Section 402(4)B of the Open Meetings Law.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying
We'd
aye.
need a second, though,
Aye.
I think.
I need a second on that?
Yes.
Second.
I've had a motion and I had a second. You need
But
another
this is a
second.
motion for
On
the
the
exec
second
session.
motion.
All right, to go into exec session.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, I think we're all good now.
Yes.
We'll go into executive session so we can get some additional information on the request for the preserve our appeal rights. And then we'll be back out into the regular council meeting to finish up with administrative business and reports. So please bear with us.
Brian,
We are now in executive session.
Brian, the I got a text here that says the Channel 8 volume is down again.
I have a few things here. The citizens on 120 at the Outlook area, they're always being challenged to if they belong in Commerce City or they belong in Brighton. And the same thing on the folks on Village East, East and West. They have Brighton zip codes, but they reside in Commerce City. So what do we have to do as a city to get those things straight? Is that annex that
We've been
zip
working
code?
on that. We've been working on that for 10 years.
This is that challenge we've talked about forever, Steve, which is the difference between municipal boundaries and postal boundaries.
Right.
And people see the postal information of Brighton or Henderson or otherwise, but you live in the municipality of Commerce City. And that's one of the things, and it's not that it's not confusing, it's horribly confusing and divisive for the community. But if I remember correctly, part of this is we would need a zip code created and post office, et cetera, which unfortunately we have 3 post offices that touch our community, right? Henderson, the old Commerce City, and then what's the one right on Brighton Boulevard?
Henderson.
No, by the old Adams City. Isn't it?
Oh, that's Adams City. Adams City.
Oh, yeah, Adams City Post Office, yeah.
Adams Heights. No, it's Adams City Post Office.
We did ask Mike Dino, I think last year, to take a fresh look at that issue and explore what avenues there are at the federal level for making those changes. But we do understand, just as what's said, it's very, very difficult.
Right. But just knowing that they're in our boundary, at least reach out to those residents and to know that we establish them as being Commerce City residents, so they don't have that confusion when they come down. They want to sign up for a rec center pass because they go to Brighton and they say no. And they've come to Commerce City and we've told them no also. So we need to make sure those people, those addresses are Commerce City residents, even though their zip code is in Brighton.
The rec center handled that problem by everybody in Commerce City, whether it's Henderson, whether it's over in the Brighton Post, they know they have them, and so if they come in to get a Commerce City Rec Center pass, they can look up the address and they can tell that it's a Commerce City resident no matter what the postal code is, if it's a Commerce City resident.
But I think the example that Mr. Douglas gives is, I'm a new resident. I just bought a home that's existing in Outlook. I have a Brighton address. I didn't pay attention at closing that I live in Commerce City, and I go to the Brighton Rec Center to get my pass, and they tell me that I don't live in Brighton.
Right.
The John Q. public doesn't understand postal versus municipal, and so that may be a different discussion, right, in terms of city news or other. I mean, I would love to see us, and I think it's been a long time since we've talked about this, but the idea of at closing, right, we send notification that says, welcome to Commerce City. I know you live in a Brighton mailing address. You live in Commerce City. I mean, the challenge is people don't know, and it creates confusion, and we see it all the time where people are like, why is Commerce City building a park in Brighton? Wait a minute, do I live on, which side of the street do you live on? Oh, I live in Brighton on the west side. I think you're in Commerce City on the east side. I mean, people don't get it. And I know we have monuments at certain points in our city. Maybe we have to think, maybe part of this is thinking about monument signage over at that 120th and Chambers area so that it becomes more obvious that you're entering Commerce City. I know we've got the entering, leaving like we do that confuses people by JD and the mayor's house, but I don't know. I mean, it's a confusing question because you have people that live in many places that
I honestly think we can do some of it through signage. I will tell you, I was having breakfast one day in Brighton in a cafe in Brighton. There was a whole table full of gentlemen talking, and I had my mayor's coat on, and they stopped me and they said, "Oh, you're the mayor of Commerce City." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I live close to Commerce City, but I live in Brighton. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in Commerce City. We're just talking." And I said, "You live close to Commerce City, but you live in Brighton. Where do you live?" "I live in the Outlook subdivision." And they've lived there for a long time. And I said, "You don't live in Brighton. You live in Commerce City. You have a Brighton mailing address. Trying to make that explanation, it makes it very, very frustrating for many people. And until they have to seek service, then they start realizing that they don't live in Brighton. They live in Commerce City or Henderson. Literally had a lady at a show home in Stillwater that asked me. She saw my coat. I was looking at the new homes, the models. She said, "So you're the mayor of Commerce City?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Do you know the mayor of Henderson?" And I said, "Well, that's me too." And she said, "Really? You can be the mayor of two places at once?" And I said, "No, I'm the mayor of Reunion too." And the lady just totally freaked out. She just couldn't believe that. But and that's a person selling homes in our community. So it's something that we've brought up regularly that has been a problem. And if you go out east to Haysmont Road, there's a little subdivision there, and they're in Commerce City. And we haven't annexed that yet. It's in our growth boundary, but they're not Commerce City residents. So it makes it very, very difficult for people to navigate that situation of where they live. And I think the better we can do with signage, we might gain some strategy by saying, Outlook, a Commerce City community, something to that nature. But we have struggled because the post office is a U.S. controlled, it's a
Metro
district. And even in my community where I live, my address is Henderson. And if I put Commerce City on any mail, they won't deliver it. If someone sends to Sean Ford, the mayor of Commerce City, Colorado, 80022 or whatever, 80640, with it saying Commerce City, they will not deliver that mail. So it goes back to whoever sent it. And it's been a challenge for people that live in those particular areas. River runs one of those areas, Outlook, the Villages. It would be great. I would pursue Mike Dino to try to get somewhere with it. But in the meantime, I think if we could designate those areas and get some signs up that say, welcome to Commerce City when you are pulling into that subdivision, then maybe we can start helping our residents identify where they live.
Well, I think the other challenge to this is, though, and this is where I think we have a case for Mr. Dino to raise, from a population distribution and relative distance to a United States postal facility, we are completely out of whack, right? So we can take the maps that we saw earlier on our CDBG activity, and in the lower quadrant, south of 96th Avenue, you have 2 post offices. 3 if you count this facility that we sit right next door here, that are within, if you live, let's go further south. Let's go all the way to 72nd. You've effectively got 3
Derby,
post
Adams
offices
City,
between
Commerce
56th
City.
and 72nd.
Yep.
You go north of 56 or 72nd Avenue, you have no post office until you get all the way to 124th, just south of 124th Avenue and Brighton Road, just outside of Henderson/Commerce City. So you now have better than half our population that does not have a post office. The next closest post office in Brighton is
Bridge,
all the way to Bridge. So you have nothing. And this is where I will go back to our former fellow council member Benson. This was one of the things that he and I vehemently agreed on, needing to solve. And I think with the population surges that we have in the north, it is, I know it's something that, to the mayor's point, we've punted on over and over again. I think we have to come at it with fresh eyes and fresh tactics to figure out how to solve. And I think it's probably a multi-pronged approach in terms of communication to people that live there so they know they're in this city and they appreciate, pretty crazy to think that you've got people that live in the Villages at Buffalo Run West, across the street from where we're building a new park, who are across the Second Creek open space from where we're getting ready to build this phenomenal rec center, who many don't think they live in Commerce City, right? And, so you take...
Jason, here's one. The new rec center will have a Brighton address.
Yeah, amen. We've talked about that before, and that's just lunacy. So anyway, I think we've got to get that sorted.
Well, another option is to encourage folks to register to vote, because when they register to vote, it will make clear to them that they're Commerce City residents, and they'll be sure to get a Commerce City ballot.
That's highly effective, just from experience. I mean, not to offend anybody on this council, but the greatest number of individual votes that any one of us has received is something on the order of 2,000 out of 50+ thousand citizens. So the whole registering to vote thing is great, but we have not even half. I would look at Ms. Bauer. What proportion of our citizens are currently registered to vote? A pitiful number. Anyway, I didn't mean to bash the city manager over it, but we're brainstorming, right? We need tactics. So,
Could staff please look into continuing to pursue maybe the fresh eyes that Jason mentioned on how do we deal with this zip code issue that we're dealing with in Commerce City?
Mayor, can I get in
Sorry, there. Let me go through the list I have here. Mr. Bullock, you're next.
I don't have anything.
All
Wait,
right, good.
Yes,
wait, I
I
wasn't
do.
done yet.
Well, don't, we're still on zip codes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm not with that. I'm with something else.
JD, I'm not done with you, Steve. We're
Okay.
still on zip codes. JD?
I just wanted to get into that conversation because I do live in one of those difficult neighborhoods. When you come up Peoria and you hit 112, immediately you see a sign that says, "Welcome to Brighton."
Yep.
When you come down 120th, you immediately see a sign that says, "Welcome to Brighton." All of our children go to, the legal term of that school district is Brighton 27J. So their post office is Henderson. Changing that zip code is a bigger fight than it's going to take a long time. I'm with the mayor that when we need better signage, and I would love to see the names of our communities on those signs. So I don't know. I mean, I get really tired of every night when I drive home from council when Peoria is open that immediately I get the sign of "Welcome to Brighton." But if our signs said that we're in my neighborhood or something, "Welcome to Commerce City, River Run, Stillwater, River Oaks," just name those communities that are right there. And I do believe residents then would start correlating that with where they live. And that's something that we can do, and we don't have to rely on the United States Post Office to fix our problem. And we need to be as aggressive as Brighton is at putting these signs up.
Well, you know, and JD, one of the things I think we need to push for, I don't think we can change the zip codes, but if we can at least let them acknowledge the name of the city in which that zip code, where that mail's being delivered, like ours is Henderson, but if we were put Commerce City, Colorado, 80640, still the Henderson zip code, but Commerce City as the city, I think that would help to start transitioning that. They go off the zip code of the area, the postal office that it gets delivered out of. But there has to be, I mean, I'll put it in the staff's hands to help try to figure this out. Jason?
Two thoughts on this. One, I agree with JD that there's probably as big a fight from our own residents if we were to change some of these namings to something else as anything else. But I wonder if communications can look at our participation from our telephone town halls. Just out of memory of who we see calling in, it's predominantly folks that are with a Commerce City address. It is folks from both the north and south that have a defined Commerce City address. I wonder how many people that have a Henderson address or a Brighton address and get a auto dial from us saying join our town hall think that we somehow got them on the wrong list and don't know that we're a Commerce City, that they're a Commerce City resident. I don't know what we can do to, again, look at that. But something just popped into my head, and this comes from my experience on strike duty in Pennsylvania. I went to a million little tiny towns all over the central Pennsylvania world, between Allentown and Reading. And I kept finding these cities that, were a city, but if you look at Google in certain respects, you get multiple layers of address. And many of these communities would be Fleetwood, Pennsylvania, which was actually Reading. Fleetwood, Reading, Pennsylvania. So they had a different zip code, but they were listed in sort of layers so that they retained the Fleetwood or Walnut Town or, whatever these places were I was, but they had the additional tag of Reading. So it created the sort of wrapper around the municipality. And I don't know if that was unique to what I saw there. I don't think I've seen that when I Google Map here in Colorado, and I don't know if it's a convention that's part of that state, but some other avenue for folks to look at.
Well, Jason, and I hate to say it, but I think we need to be more proactive on this. It was because of a problem within our computer system that all those people up there at Outlook could not get rec center passes because we as a city didn't put the correct information in. And so when they were coming in with those IDs showing Brighton and it wouldn't show there, well, then they just went home. And it was through this 2K. And that's why I know we can do a better job, because we reached out to everybody with 2K. And when we did, we identified that we had these areas. When they said, well, why would I vote for that? I don't even live there to where I can use that. So I think we need to do a much better outreach to these communities who, when they're islands like the dunes and this and that, they have no clue where they live. And I think it's up to us to introduce ourselves and continually help them understand where they live. Even though if their kids attend the 27J school district and their post office is Henderson and their water is this and the fire department's that, you don't have that where you have Brighton Water, Brighton Fire, Brighton Police, Brighton School District. We don't have that. So, and we're never going to have it. So we just need to get, I think, much better at understanding and figuring out how do we communicate with everybody.
All right. Thank you all. Staff, please. And council, think about ways to help, but we'll put it in the hands of staff to come back and give us an update on what they found out and what we can pursue. Any other? I'm going back to Steve. Steve, you're still up.
Yeah, I have another thing, too. I just sent everybody a website for Unity Suites. We have someone in the community who's turned their home into like a hotel. So through the HOA, they're not allowed to rent their place out less than 30 days. And it's becoming more of a problem in communities. People are doing the Airbnbs, and it's the neighbors next to them that are experiencing issues with parking, trash, not to upkeep on the yards. A lot of things are happening here. Denver just went through that last year. In 2015, 2016, up in CML, a lot of the mountain communities have been going through this Airbnb because it has affected those communities so much. It has outpriced some of the homes there, where the homes on average price in Buena Vista were like, say, $185,000. People are paying $400,000 for homes because they're buying them and renting them out on the Airbnb. So I think this council should look at, in the near future, a study session on the sharing economy when it comes to the Airbnb in our communities, because it's becoming a problem with the HOAs. Our ordinance as far as having 4 adults or people who are related to you, live with you, and all that stuff, is becoming an issue. And so I think we need to look at putting that on the agenda sometime in a study session so we can do a deep dive in that, because it's a growing industry throughout the nation, and it's a problem. Yes, the Denver just passed an ordinance on that. You have to register your home, you got to get a permit, and you got to pay taxes like you would if you were a hotel.
And
So,
what you can do it for is 30 days.
well,
Their ordinance is 30 days in one given year. So basically, they've cut you off from really.
Put your microphone on, please.
It is.
All right.
Okay.
Talk into it, please.
So that's Denver's ordinance.
Yeah, because normally you can rent your home out, we got these 6-month lease, year lease, 30 days, but anything less than that is not prohibited. But we need to look at doing some sort of ordinance to get something in place, because people are buying homes up and also put them on the website, not just this website here, but through our communities. They're buying homes and renting them out per room, not the house.
Okay, thanks, Steve. You got something to add to that?
No, I have administrative council business.
All right. Steve, is that all your administrative council business?
Would that be okay, the council, if we did a future study session on the shared economy when it comes to short-term rentals?
Yeah, it's fine with me. Anybody have any problems with it? Seeing none, the staff can look into it. Is that all you had?
That's all I have for administrative business.
All right, thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
Bullock?
Yes, I got a couple of calls from, I can't tell you exactly what the subdivision is. It's over behind the golf course on the northeast side. They're building more homes over there right now up to the golf
Buckley
course.
Ranch.
Yeah, about mosquito control. On the
Mark Bush's property?
north side of 112, between 120th and 112th.
Mark
Okay.
Bush's property?
Yeah, they said there's a lot of standing water, and they've been having a lot of mosquitoes. And I know that they did one spray, but I don't know if they got back there, because with them building the homes, there is standing water, and they say the mosquitoes really get bad on that side of the golf course between 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the evening and in the early morning. Okay,
All right. Anything else?
that's me.
Anyone else with council administrative business? Seeing none, we'll move into reports. City manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did send out this week's edition of the city manager's update. We have a number of updates. Repairs to a couple of heaved roads. 120th Avenue is open to traffic, as we mentioned. An update on concerns about RVs parked illegally. That was brought up by Councilwoman Elliott. An update on the Adams Crossing development that was requested by Councilman Douglas. And then a reminder that I'll be out of the office the rest of this week and most of next week. So these fine gentlemen to my right will be helping to cover for me.
Great, thank you. Mr. Seasley.
Nothing else to report this evening. Thank you.
I'll get into my report. I want to first wish Councilman Douglas a happy birthday. Friday I got to golf with him, and it was his birthday, so happy birthday, Steve.
Thank you.
I'll go through my report. Had a meeting with Andy Williams, a meeting with Mark Bush, Water Commission meeting with, of course, Mr. McEldowney. We discussed some of the positives that came out of that. Rotary, and then myself, let me see if I can get this right. Myself, Lowell Richardson is our chief, and Mr. Teeter and Mr. Douglas golfed in the Adams County Commissioners Golf Tournament, better known as
Senior Hub.
the Senior Hub. Thank you. And then I had a Sasaki listening tour after that golf tournament. And I was pretty interested in what the Sasaki listening tour was, where it's the development group that DIA in Denver has hired to look at marketing for the area around the airport, including Tower Road and our areas, and how we work together on that. And a lot of that it was good they came in. Our economic development team was there with me. We talked a lot about our current plans that are in place, things that we didn't want to see, such as the rental car piece of the airport move out to the north, which would impact our plans. And so I think that meeting went very well. And there was probably 15, 20 people in that meeting, and I'm sure we'll be getting an update as things go on. We do have a request out and a date set, I believe, for the Adams County Airport Coordinating Committee, which me and Rick serve on, and that will be to get the airport committee to really start working towards how we're going to manage this marketing plan for around the airport. Then I had a concert in the park. I missed the first couple, but I did make the second couple. Congratulations to the Cultural Council. They were very well done this year and really seemed to have a lot of people out utilizing that opportunity. And then, let's see, the Bennett State of the Town. I did go out to Bennett during their State of the Town. They have a new mayor, Reese. He's doing a good job. Their trustees now are putting in a new water tower, a new water system, a lot of stuff going on in the town of Bennett to help them with future development and future growth of the city of Bennett or the town of Bennett. We had an area boards meeting. Myself and Rick Teeter went to that. Went very well. South Adams did get up again and talk about reducing their residential water connection fees, which I think is very beneficial to development in Commerce City. Metro North Chamber Golf Tournament. That one was myself, Rick Teeter, Steve Douglas, and Paulo Diaz. And went to the Gallery on the Go ribbon cutting. Very well done. Congratulations to the Gallery on the Go. I was amazed at how much that has expanded and into other states. Those young ladies that run that business are doing really well. And if you haven't had a Gallery on the Go party to sit down and paint with your spouse and friends, maybe over a cocktail. I'm not the painting type, remember, but I did enjoy it, so you might all try that. Rick covered the NADA board meeting for me because I did have a breakfast meeting that morning. And then there were several of us at the funeral for Linda Watts. We had another concert in the park. And then last Friday on Steve's birthday, we had the Commerce City Rotary Golf Tournament. Congratulations to Commerce City Rotary Club. It was very well attended. That tournament was myself, Mr. Douglas, Mr. Lowell Richardson, and Rick Teeter. So, and we did fairly well in that one, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Which was good. What did we come in?
60.
A 60.
What?
12 under?
I think, was it 40-something one?
It was a 60.
44-1.
Yeah, 44-1. But I think we did well at 12 under. And I know, I just have to say that to really bug Mr. McBroom. He lost his golf match to the judge the other day. We're sorry to hear that. But he has a more important match tomorrow against his brother. So we'll see how that works out for you.
Where is it going to be?
Buffalo Run, I'm sure.
So you're going to have a gallery out there, right?
My game is way too fragile to have a gallery.
So, does anybody have anything they'd like to add to my report tonight before I close this out? Councilwoman Carson?
I do. And Mayor, you touched on it a little bit. I just wanted to say thank you to all the hard work the Cultural Council did and to the citizens who came out. Crystal Wood, we hit somewhere about 1,800 to 2,000 attendees this year. And thanks to Chipotle for sponsoring our fundraiser and the food trucks who attend and give us a portion of all their sales. And then last Friday, I was busy and didn't get to attend the graduation of Cop Camp. But I did want to congratulate and thank our officers. That is such a wonderful program. And they touch the lives of these kids in no other way that you can. One of my neighbor's son has attended. And I'm telling you, this kid has attended now, I think, 3 years in a row. Chief, he said this was the best yet. But they come back just pumped up and honestly have a different perspective of the world. It's amazing. I don't know what You guys, he has ran me through the programs. He has shown me the hazmat suits and this and that. But seriously, it is an entire attitude change that you see in them. So thank you very much. That is a program that we just recoup all kinds of benefits from that and lifetimes of it. So thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Teeter.
Okay, just to update a few things on the area boards meeting that the mayor and I both attended. I'll start with the Wildlife Refuge. They said they have one brand new bald eagle out there. Said the burrowing owls are back in town. They leave and they come back, but the burrowing owls are they're fun to watch. They do a lot of little crazy things out there, and they like to hide out in the short grass so you can see them real well, but they're fun to watch. The bison calves, there are 6 or 7 new bison calves out there. As far as South Adams Fire Department, they have hired 4 new firemen. They have ordered 2 new fire trucks, and they went over the opening of Station 4 again up on Rosemary, and they also addressed the new admin building, which is going up just west of this building here. One thing that the mayor missed that I thought was kind of interesting on the South Adams Water was they have purchased their own drilling rig, and they are setting it up down by the Platte River, and what they're after is water. They're doing horizontal drilling, and they're recovering water for themselves. There was no show for the school board on the area boards, and I think that's it as far as the area boards. The NATO meeting that I ended up going to, this year the legislation passed that buses could use the shoulder, RTD buses could use the shoulder of the road on 36, and they're also going to extend that to Highway 25. So if you see a bus going down, this has happened now, if you see a bus going down the shoulder of the road on 36 or 25 and you jump in behind it to follow it, you're subject to a ticket. That's just for the buses only. Westminster did open up their G line for their light rail. It was this weekend. They had some free time to ride the rail over there, so it's a brand new line. So if you want to get over there and take a look at the G line and give it a ride, it is now open. The N line, which is the one coming into Commerce City, the 70th Avenue Bridge is still under design, and the platform work has not started yet. They said that there are 64 pillars coming across for that N line there that they've already have in place. And I think that's basically what I got there, Chief. Mayor.
Thanks. Mr. Douglas.
Yes. This past weekend, I walked with the Adams 14 teachers and some of the community leaders. Went over to the city of Thornton, up off 100th, and there's a trailer park area over there. And went to the doors. Most of the parents and kids live over there, Spanish speaking. I can understand some Spanish, but I can't speak very well at all. So I had a person who spoke Spanish, one of the Spanish teachers. And we went around talking to the teachers and all that. And the reason why I went there is because those kids come over here to learn, but they live over there. And they're doing an early door knock to engage with the parents and the parents and the students to see if some are still going to come back. And then we heard for the ones who didn't answer and talk to us. There's concerns that some of the kids, because they don't speak English very well, they get bullied a lot. Some of the teachers aren't friendly to them. Just a lot of concerns. And so we say we take those things back. And then on August 20th, there's an open house for Adams 14 to welcome the kids back. And so I thought that was pretty neat. And there's a section of trailer park homes across from the flea market on 88th and 76. My understanding that's part of Commerce City. Is that right? Because when you look at the zip code, it says Commerce City. It doesn't say unincorporated Adams County. Could we find out about that? Okay. A lot of them are saying that is in our area. And then a few weekends ago, I attended an inoperability conference with the E470 out in Boston, and on the agenda was autonomous vehicles, vehicle-to-vehicle readings, smart intersections. So later on, adopting some sort of smart city solutions. As the days of the VCRs, and then came streaming, your audio and video, autonomous cars are out there, and a lot of automakers are testing cars, and they're going to start using the toll roads as a testing facilities in the near future here. Installing smart intersections so the intersections can read the cars. So they're staging the cars, and as the intersections start reading the cars that come through the intersections on a daily basis, the intersections themselves get smarter. So instead of having an operator go in and increase the times for a turn signal at 4 o'clock, automatically this right here will set its memory and will program those cars that have been staged in the left turn or right turn lanes to give them more time to turn. You have a set of cars that start at 7 o'clock, and they're going from the north to the south. They will engage with the cars to tell them to keep their speed up to 30 miles an hour as they engage south. And once you get past the intersection, the light will turn red, and the other direction will go. So we're coming to an age where cars in intersection, car to car, are going to start talking to each other. And as we had seen in the past, was it the $3 billion program for cash for clunkers? You're going to see some sort of federal incentive to incentivize people to turn in their cars that are not smart cars for the new technology, lane assistant, brake assistant, a lot of new things that are coming on cars, and those might be an option. And then we also talk about transponders and the ability, maybe having a national pass, because there are issues. Not every city, not every state has tolling. And then we looked at the tolling here we have in Colorado, and it's very interesting how the state of Colorado has widened the roads going south on I-25. No tolling, no managed lanes. But as you go north, where it's needed the most over the years, it has been ignored. They just got a Tiger grant, which is great. Doesn't cover the whole cost of construction, but the folks in the north are going to have to pay tolls, going to have to pay for to ride in those managed lanes. And so the state really has to look at making sure there's a even distribution, because like I said, you travel from the north heading south to downtown, you got to pay to ride in the fast lanes. In the south, you don't have to.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
A couple quick things. This council had me sign a letter that went out to Stapleton, Northfields, when they purchase a home, making sure they are aware of the stadium and the refuge. I'll read you really quick what they sent a response letter saying, we have received your letter with respect to Commerce City's request for disclosure of the Dick's Sporting Goods Park and the Rocky Mountain Arsenal National Wildlife Refuge, generally adjacent to Section 10 of the Stapleton redevelopment area. We are happy to give your letter to our home builders whom we sell land for development in Section 10 as part of our due diligence material package, which we provide to them. Additionally, although we believe that the location of these two features is plainly obvious, their presence is generally called out as amenities for would-be home buyers in Stapleton marketing materials. While Forest City Stapleton Incorporated has no direct relationship with the home buyers, We anticipate that the home builders will use their professional judgment in providing this information to their home buyers. Sincerely, the Stapleton Forest City Incorporated. Just so you know, we did get a reply. Also, tomorrow is National Night Out. We know I have one location that I know there's an event going on is at Our Savior Lutheran Church at 6770 Monaco Street from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. They will have a band and food. So please try to get out and do the National Night Out Against Crime program. And there's going to be different locations in different areas. Mr. Bullock, you're next.
No report. I forgot what I was going to say because Steve
Took
ran
too
on.
long?
Yep.
Now
Sorry.
he wants to go again. Steve?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to council and Deb and Renee for sending the flowers to my wife. She had an incident where she fell and hurt herself there, twisted her knee and scraped her face up pretty good. So I want to tell everybody, appreciate that. And the other thing is, I know we had the folks come in before us with Stapleton and all that, and didn't want to hold a meeting, so I held what I wanted to say until now. I did attend the concert on Friday and Saturday. Concert on Friday was pretty loud as far as the bass. I left later on as Councilman Amador and Bullock. I went over and did a sound check on the edge over there off of 55th across the street, and you could hear it. And I was waiting for the finale and all that. It's kind of like the fireworks type deal. And so you could hear it and all that. I mean, typically if you think about it, in an entertainment district, it's always been homes that are either income qualified, low income, apartments, townhomes or so, in that setting, and then you may have a viaduct being built around there. And those folks there have complaints, but they have never had, I say, response like what we had here, coming forward and can speak their mind and say, hey, this is bothering us, these decibels, and they have lived with that. So typically around this area here, you wouldn't see these higher end homes being built. And as far as I want to be a good neighbor and all that, but you got to understand, living next to an entertainment venue like this doesn't give you sort of the right to say, well, hey, I know I came here after, so I want you to do this. And I'm not doubting these people had those issues and everything, but I sure took the time to make sure Friday and Saturday that I went both areas of town to see what it's like as this music was happening. Those kids over there, it's kind of like a rave party. They were down on the floor area where you would have soccer. They had the grounds protected. There was no illegal activity going on. All those kids were doing was dancing. That was it. I mean, it was just like they were all hooked together, or they're all waving their hands the same, heads bobbing, everything. Pretty much well behaved. Some of the dresses and costumes the kids are wearing were spectacular. They're out of this world, but it was neat to see that and take part in that, because it's a different setting. The volume was high, but I just want to say that those concerns and all that are not going to go on deaf ears and all, but just the fact that we have other people who live in our community as well, and other things that they're impacted with the smell from refinery. You got the smell from the waste treatment plant, but those facilities were there before the homes were there. So that's part of life. So I just want to let people know that I did put myself in their shoes and actually at the venue, and it wasn't as bad as what they're saying. So,
all right. Thanks, Steve. If there be no further business to come before the City Council this evening, we are adjourned.
I appreciate that. Higher end home. My high stadium.